Hey, welcome to apollocitycomics. I'm Brandon.
I'm David.
And here we are at the finale of our 3-part epic Watchmen series. And what a journey it's been.
Yeah.
And what an immense amount of material we've had to read and
Wow.
watch and play and dazzle ourselves with. And now we're here.
And succumb to mediocrity as well, depending
Yeah.
on what you're talking about.
Yeah. I was trying to be optimistic.
Well,
Honestly,
I appreciate it.
It's crazy how we're covering before Watchmen and Doomsday Clock, the sequel and the prequel to Watchmen, the legendary book. And it's crazy how on Watchmen at its core is the most epic, just intelligent and well-versed comic book ever. And today's episode is exactly the opposite. Like, it's just pure
Schlock.
I couldn't even read all of it. Honestly, there were some parts where I started every series and I was optimistic and like, maybe this is going to be a good one.
Yeah.
And after a while, I just started scanning and being like, I could just look and then just catch parts of it. And I got the story, and they weren't, I didn't feel like there were stories that needed to be told or needed to be created. How do you feel about it?
Before Watchmen is a blatant cash grab.
Yes.
Before Watchmen is DC realizing they can make a small amount, like a small boat's worth of money by taking a sacred name and just redoing it. And this actually is like my thesis statement, everyone. Watchmen, 12 issues. 12 issues. Doomsday Clock, not finished yet, but it will be 12 issues.
Yes.
Before Watchmen, if you add them all up, I don't know if you have yet or not.
I didn't want to think about it.
If you add all the numbers up, it's 37 issues. It's 3 times as long as Watchmen. And there's like the crux of the problem right there.
That should have been an automatic, no guys, that does not make sense.
Yeah.
Why would we make every series 4 to 6 issues long and that many series?
Yeah. It would be like if you took the 7 Harry Potter novels and you wanted to write a series of prequels surrounding each of the minor miscellaneous characters in Harry Potter, like Hagrid needed a book, Dobby needs a book or something like that. But then you go beyond just writing 7 novels or filming 8 movies or whatever, and then you do like 21 novels based on all the, like a 3-part Hagrid novel where you just read about Hagrid's like upbringing or something, or like, oh wow, I'm so great, I read that 6-part Snape novel series. Like,
because even if you look at something, like a comparison again, like as epic as like Lord of the Rings, it's 3 parts, and then you have the Silmarillion, which is a prequel, and then the Hobbit, which is a prequel, and those are all individual books, and then you have 2 like unfinished tales, 2 series, but it's just like short tales. It's like it's short, it's brief, and it's a various amount of them. But I mean, they're not trying to do the Lord of the Rings again.
That's a good point too. And like I've never read the Silmarillion, but the Hobbit is its own story. And you can read The Hobbit on its own, see the character arc, see all the development. Before Watchmen is literally just like taking any line of dialogue. Like what happened is they just got like 6 copies of Watchmen. They all sat down in teams. And then Brian Azzarello, that hack fraud, he sat there with like a highlighter and highlighted every line in the book that had the comedian in it. And then he like cut them all out and put them on a big poster board and like hung it in front of his bed. And then that's how he wrote the comedian. Like he's like, oh, that line on page 5. Okay, let me write an issue about that.
Yeah. Seriously.
And that's what it feels like. Like they're really trying to get in there and pull everything apart.
Did you do a worst to best?
It's loose. It's loose because, and I have to be honest, there are 2 I didn't read.
Okay.
I didn't read Rorschach.
Cool, because we're starting with that one.
Is that the bottom?
Yeah, that's the bottom.
That's impressive.
That's my bottom.
Have you read Dollar Bill?
That's my next one.
Okay, well then I'm glad I didn't read Rorschach. Okay, so let's start off with Rorschach. Why don't you tell me? So we're gonna go from the worst before Watchmen to the best, and maybe we'll have a disagreement. But
because it doesn't get much better.
And to be honest, like it's kind of just like for me, it's like cesspool, and then like right above it. The best before Watchmen isn't like necessary reading even.
Yeah, it's not
the best before
good.
Watchmen's like, hey, I was able to read this.
And actually read the majority of that series.
I actually read what was written. I didn't just like give up.
Yeah. And I mean, and it's okay. So I I started this journey, you
Okay.
know, about a month ago because it's so much reading as we were talking from the episode 1.
37 issues. Yeah.
And Rorschach is a 6-issue series.
Okay.
Is it 6 or is it 4?
No, I believe Rorschach is 4. And it is.
4?
I have them all written down here.
Oh, it is 4?
Yeah.
Felt like 6. It just wasn't, dude. All right. It was written. Let me see. Let me pull up these notes real fast. I kind of scrolled
Go
by
for
that.
it.
Brian Azzarello wrote this.
And Lee Bermejo.
Might I say, out of all this negativity that we have said about the series so far,
Okay.
all of the artwork in each book is amazing. I loved every single artist that was on these series. Who didn't you like? Let me ask you that.
I didn't like the Moloch book. I'm not sure who it is.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
I did not like the Moloch.
Let me see the Moloch one.
Moloch
Do you have
book.
it? I don't remember who did Moloch.
Yeah. Moloch is by Eduardo Riso. I just didn't like the character style.
I don't remember what. This was the second one I
read.
read, and I really didn't even read the series. Because it's a one-shot, right?
No, Moloch's 2 parts, which again, everything is bloated in Before Watchmen. You're going to hear me say that 19 times.
No, that's actually the artwork here is really what turned me off in the series.
Yeah, and I also thought Comedian was like serviceable. Because it wasn't exciting. Like some of them didn't feel like it got it right. Like they didn't get the tone quite right. Minutemen looks really like cartoony, but that's okay with me because Minutemen probably should be.
Darwin Cook is really good at getting that old kind of classic vibe. No, I forgot about Moloch. Yeah, Moloch was good. Okay, pretty much everything. I appreciate everything but Moloch because you have Moloch and he's older, and the way he made him look too elfy. You know what I mean? Like
he looks like a Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings character.
Yeah.
back to what we've been talking about here. Okay, so Rorschach.
Rorschach. It's basically Rorschach's it's a street crime story. He's chasing down these I think it's drug lords that he goes after, and this whole gang, and really it's about him eating eggs and bacon and getting hit on in a diner. And and he's still like homeless and all that, and it's just he tries so hard at that tone that Rorschach has, but I don't think continuity-wise it made sense because I think he wasn't crazy yet. I think he was still like a normal guy, fighting crime. I don't think he had done the whole child killer thing. You know what I mean?
Even before that, Rorschach probably isn't totally on the level. Like he's probably a little bit crazy, but that definitely put him into like sociopath territory.
We're mentioning in the thought bubbles for how it changes from at post and pre, and I think this was pre that event. That's why.
Oh, okay.
And just his dialogue wasn't. I didn't feel like it was accurate, and it was just a bogus story of him just getting beat up, and then him coming back, and then him getting beat up. I don't know. It just wasn't interesting. There was nothing interesting. And then this girl that was hitting on him that wanted to go on a date with Rorschach.
Which, first off, like who's hitting?
Why are you trying to put a love interest with Rorschach? Like he's not a character.
The last character who should have a love interest. Yeah. In Hall of Watchmen, the last one.
And she ends up dying at the end, and then he's just like, "The city sucks." Like.
I've
seen the darkness. I've seen the darkness.
Rorschach's journal.
And it just wasn't. It was not. For a start, it just turned me off, and that was a month ago, and I vaguely remember. But I love Lee Bermejo's art. It's gorgeous. He just did Batman Damned. He was that artist.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I love seeing Batman Damned, which is out now, and comparing it to this was him in 2012, and the giant leap in his artwork. It's so he really does that like kind of Alex Ross, Norman Rockwell kind of realistic artwork, and it's so beautiful. It's just so on point. But I mean, it's great here in Before Watchmen too. So I mean that's the only part I enjoyed about it was just seeing his take on these, on that one character. But it's just street crimes. It's just some big boss man he built. I don't know.
Misses the point.
Yeah,
misses the
point.
point.
It was a story that it's like why did this need to be said? Why was this even created? This is a like back burner idea that shouldn't even.
It's
if
like
anything, make it a one shot. All of these books should just been a one shot. Then you could have done 3 more books because then there's 9 in the series.
Yeah.
You do 3 more on other characters, and then hey, it's 12 issues.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly, man. That's my number one thing that would have fixed all of this if they just made everything 1 issue.
Yeah.
And I would have been okay with it. Minutemen, maybe give them 2 issues.
I could see that.
But everything else, cut it down. It's not necessary.
It's not.
Yeah.
The story did not need to be told. It did nothing
No.
for the history, did nothing for the character.
Yeah.
Pointless if you ask me. There's no
nothing to get out of it.
nothing.
Okay.
You could even make a show or a one shot, short out of, like, it was that cruddy.
Lame.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if that's what we got on Rorschach, if you don't mind, I'll take the lead on this next one. The one that I thought was the worst, and Moloch's pretty close to it, but Dollar Bill, the Dollar Bill one shot.
That's my next. That's my number. Oh, well, there's 9, right? So this is my number 8.
Okay, yeah. This one's bad, and like the Dollar Bill one shot, and I have a few notes on it. So Dollar Bill is the crime fighting spokesman for national banks, and that's kind of what's covered in that issue, is that he's not really a superhero. He's not there to fight.
He got hired on.
He got hired as like a publicity commercial man, and then they were like, hey, we hear about this team of superheroes. You should go audition, because imagine what it would do for the brand and everything. So he goes, and then Minutemen's like, well, he has public notoriety. Like, people know who he is. This will be good for us. So like Dollar Bill,
so they hire him and they do fake heists and whatnot.
Exactly. And Dollar Bill's like kind of caught in the middle of it. And I guess he seems like an okay guy. Like, he's just someone who's way out of his element, beyond his powers. On page 9, I wrote down a quote where Dollar Bill, he's discussing his costume, and he says, well, can you at least get rid of the cape? It's bound to restrict my movements.
I remember that. And you're just like, oh my God.
I looked away, literally, this is my expression when I read that. If you're watching the video, I'm looking down and read that. I'm like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
And
it's because we already know what's going to happen. That's the thing. Like, you can't give us a story when we already know everything we needed from the original text.
Who is writing dialogue that bad? Like,
Len Wein.
As a middle schooler, I would have written a better line. I would have been like, you know what? That's way too on the nose.
Yeah.
As like an 11-year-old.
That's too much foreshadowing.
Yeah. And it
disappoints me, because Len Wein, we're about to dig into some amazing Len Wein storytelling, because we're about to read Swamp Thing. He created Swamp Thing. He created Wolverine.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, he phoned it in
181, and like that's like his most legendary book. That book is worth like $25,000 for like a mid-grade. Like, it's crazy. It's an amazing book. It's a legendary book, and he's created legendary characters. But he wrote a lot of this. He even wrote the backstory. Forgot about it. What's it even called? The Tales of the Black Freighter remake?
Oh, the Tales of the Crimson Corsair or something like that?
Yeah, I couldn't read any of it because I read them in groups, so you can't read that story out of you know what I mean?
So quick explanation on that. When Before Watchmen came out, it wasn't like they released all of Comedian in a row. They released them like a month at a time, and I want to say it was like 2 or 3 books. I bought these when they came out.
Okay.
And at the time I hadn't even been reading them because I came in late, and then I wasn't able to get the issues. And then also, because they're staggered, it'd be like, okay, this month it's Comedian 1 and Silk Spectre 2 or something.
Yeah.
Because it was staggered, I was like, you know what? I'm going to wait till I get all of them, and then I'm going to read them. And then when I originally got in the books, I read the Comedian first because he was one of my favorite characters in the book. And then I was like, I'm not reading the rest of this. Like, I'm going to read this later. And they've sat in my comic book box until now, that they've finally been, like, all of them have been read except for Rorschach and Silk Spectre. But Dollar Bill is just... It's a boring book. At the end, too, wow, the way they kill Dollar Bill is so cheesy. Like, he's got this inner dialogue, and it shows the guy pointing the gun at him like in a first-person thing. He was, huh? And then they pull it, and then literally it's a black box.
Yeah.
And then it's got like, and then I died.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow.
Terrible.
Wow. I hope it was worth the paycheck, man.
Right?
And then the last scene of the book is all the Minutemen, like, at his funeral. And they're like, well, we lost a good one. Oh, this was probably our fault. They didn't say that, but they should be saying that. And then, like, outside the cemetery or something, they have these kids playing in the street, and one of them's dressed up like Dollar Bill Man. And I'm like, come on. You're telling me some little kid went to the costume store, they got all the Minutemen, and some loser little kid picked Dollar Bill Man? Like, if that kid picked that costume, he wouldn't have any friends to play with.
Yeah.
He'd be sitting in his house. He'd be the one that's
getting beat up every day.
Yeah.
Like,
just like Dollar Bill.
Yeah.
Like, he's the worst. Who wants to pick the guy who got shot in the head?
Yeah. Because his cape got stuck.
In
a revolving door.
And he told him that cape would restrict his movements.
It was stupid. I'm sorry. It was just dumb.
And to me, the character Dollar Bill, and maybe Alan Moore, maybe he has something more to say of it, but when I read that part in in Watchmen that's not that long. What I took out of that was Alan Moore kind of making fun of how superheroes pick costumes that aren't practical.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah, that's why I felt that character was created, to be poking fun at that element. Is that,
and
like Incredibles, they say no capes, you know, and they play that joke, and it makes sense because when you think about it, your capes can get stuck in the door, you know. But
and all the big ones have capes, like Superman, Batman, all the DC ones in particular. Yeah, they all have capes, and it's like, okay, I get the joke, but you can't write a comic book issue out of a joke. Out of that one joke. Moment, one line, like you can't. His only defining feature. But
and you know, Alan Moore gave us so much backstory. We didn't need to hear more about Dollar Bill. Like there was no adventure or event that happened that I was remotely curious of. Like where I was like, I wonder how he like wanted to become a superhero and develop all this, you know? Yeah. Stupid. It was crap. Okay. I was angry reading it. Yeah. The next one, I don't know. Maybe this one should have been even lower than where I had it. Okay. But the next one for me, my number 7.
7. We're at 7.
Night Owl. Yeah.
Night Owl. Yeah.
Dude, it messed with, you know, and like you said before when we were talking, is that the continuity on these just gets so messed up. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. And before you get all the way into it, just a quick little rant. Like, okay, Star Wars. Originally 3 movies, right? Yeah. Then they have another 3 movies like 20, 30 years later. They have a whole bunch of books. They have all this stuff. But you know what? Somehow they were able to keep the continuity pretty good. Like maybe there's a few mistakes, but considering the amount of content that there is in Star Wars, they were doing an okay job with it. Watchmen is 12 issues. If you can't read Watchmen and figure out what the story is, and look, don't try and make changes to Watchmen. You're not more clever than Alan Moore. No. Like don't try to be. All your little like, but it turns out really he was doing this. Like, no, dude, stop. Yeah. Okay, sorry to do that. No, you're right,
completely. Like that's exactly what I was thinking.
It's so frustrating.
What are you trying to mess with? All the information was already given in Watchmen. Yeah. All of it. It says somewhere in Watchmen. I remember this, and I think it says in the movie, says it in the comic that he didn't talk to the original Night Owl until he was basically about to become a superhero, and he just wanted his blessings at that point.
Yeah, he went to ask permission.
Yeah, to use his name and everything, and he was just like, "Damn kid, like you got this on more on the dot than I did. Yeah. Like this is do it."
Because he's showing up with all these gadgets and everything. Yeah, he's showing up like, "Whoa,
it's
what's this guy?"
You know what I mean? Like and it's freaking cool, but and it messes with continuity from the other, like the Minutemen book, like all of them that mention Night Owl, the original Night Owl, it just messes with it. So. Everybody, if you haven't read it,
give us a little more explanation into this.
The second Night Owl apparently was the first Night Owl's, like basically like protege,
like ward, like his Robin, essentially.
Yeah, and he was just teaching him how to do gadgets and crime fight, and you know the second Night Owl was like training every week with him and doing all this stuff, and it's like, what? Where did you get this from remotely, Mr. Michael? Straczynski, is it? Straczynski? Yeah.
I'll let you struggle with that one. I'm not sure.
Straczynski.
I'm actually sorry.
Joe Kubert's art is cool.
Pull this whole thing up. Yeah, the art is okay.
Yeah, that one's one of the more. Kubert has done better, for sure. Oh, but it's Joe Kubert though. Isn't that the Kubert's dad? There's Annie Kubert and Adam Kubert. Yeah, this is Joe Kubert.
That's your territory, man.
He's a legendary Spider-Man artist. He's a legendary Marvel artist, honestly. Kubert even has a school, the Kubert School for art and design. And his sons are amazing, and Joe Kubert's whoops. No, this story was terrible, man. It just makes me upset thinking about it.
Yeah, and to me, the biggest missed opportunities are all on the coolest characters.
Yeah, Rorschach, Night Owl.
The books you don't expect to be that great are actually pretty good, and then it's like, you know, how do you mess up Night Owl and Rorschach?
Dude, you could have done some cool stuff with Night Owl, some backstory, some him and Rorschach moments. Yeah, there's even a cover with him and Rorschach's not in this.
Yeah,
at all.
That's true. It's really weird how they just decided, and I think it was just to sell books. This goes back to DC knowing that
if we put Watchmen, we're going to make money.
Yeah. It's gross.
And it was a waste of time. I was so mad reading it. I faintly remember it. It just makes no sense.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to say about it?
I don't. You hit all of it, man. To be honest,
It's frustrating.
It's just overall frustrating. Well, you know what? I have one to. Well, what's your next one? I'm just curious.
My number 6 is The Comedian.
That's the one I was going to talk about next.
Nice.
Man. Okay, Comedian.
Continuity again.
And to be honest, I can't even get it straight in my brain anymore. What happened? Because they made it seem like he didn't kill Kennedy, but then he did. No, he didn't kill Kennedy in this book. He was somewhere else.
Yeah, and he's crying because he saw Kennedy get killed on TV.
Yeah, he's crying about it because
they were buds and they play football together.
Yeah, so the beginning of this whole book series starts off with the comedian being bros with the Kennedys.
Yeah.
And then, like, Jackie O is like, Marilyn Monroe's a hussy. She's sleeping with my man. Can you go kill her?
And then he kills her.
He kills Marilyn Monroe. Like, okay. And then there's a whole, like, Vietnam story arc.
Oh, yeah.
That's just boring. And, like...
I forgot about that completely.
You find out that the comedian's not a good guy.
And you're like, oh, duh.
Yes. Thanks.
Yeah. Do we need to read more about his Vietnam time? Like,
yeah.
I felt like the one scene in the book sums it up completely.
Yeah. You know everything you need to know.
Yeah.
About
and that's how
Vietnam.
how great of a writer Alan Moore is that you just understand it and be like, that's crazy. Like, what? I don't know. But written by Brian Azzarello. Again.
And
crap. J.G. Jones, how do you like? You're right. Some of the artwork was really bland. Some of the blues he uses are kind of overdone.
Yeah.
He did Final Crisis, which is one of my favorite series, and Marvel Boy. Both of them written by Grant Morrison, and he does some phenomenal cool work. But I feel like this was very bottom of the barrel for all these people. Even for Azzarello, like, I don't even like the guy, and I thought this was bad for him, you know?
Yeah, the guy's wearing tacky shirts, and he's still not putting it together in this book.
Vest for no reason. Sandals.
The Comedian, the thing I didn't like about it is I felt like it was missing all the grit, too, like, in the art. It all looked very clean. It didn't seem like...
You kind of want him to be dirty,
yeah.
Punisher-y, like.
Watchmen
Why did
has
they take a Punisher approach with that?
Well, you know, that would have been cool, too. Because they didn't necessarily even show us why the comedian is the comedian.
They tried to make him, like, humane almost.
Yeah. And, yeah, they're trying to show the softer side of him by...
Which nobody wants.
No one wants. And then, more importantly, the Kennedy thing was so cool.
Yeah. I wish they would have, like, you know, had the setup for him killing Kennedy.
Yeah.
That would have been cool. And then framing the other guy, like, having him take the, you know, hit for it.
They could have, like, made some reason why, like, maybe Kennedy betrayed, you know, the comedian. Like, he sent him to do something in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And then it turns out that he had him do something that, you know...
Yeah.
That pushed even the boundaries of the comedian. And then he had to kill Kennedy. Or he discovers some secret that Kennedy's really like a traitor to the government.
And then that way,
and then
something.
That's the last laugh.
Dude,
you know what I mean?
30 seconds of brainstorming. We have a way better story than before Watchmen.
Yeah. DC, call us. Call us.
Seriously.
We'll put something together.
We'll fix this whole thing for you.
I'll talk to my middle schoolers and we'll write a better book than Brian Azzarello pulled off here. This is going to be really embarrassing if, you know, like, I'm not saying this podcast is ever going to get super huge, but, like, what if Brian Azzarello ever hears just some of this like, we just become the podcast that hates on Brian Azzarello every week.
If my comics ever blow up and I work for DC, they're going to, like, look back at this. It's going to be like James Gunn's Twitter.
Oh, no. Poor James Gunn.
And I'm going to get fired because I talked bad about Brian Azzarello.
Well, I say poor James Gunn, and this is way off on another topic, but yes, the jokes were super distasteful, but you guys were also hiring James Gunn. Yeah. And you should have known that he's like a shock value guy.
Yeah.
He's not family friendly. He's not
like
a Disney
any of his
person.
Films. Or even the one he made when Guardians 2 was about to come out. That Office one, yeah.
And what about Tony Stark and all of his intense drug abuse? Like Robert Downey Jr. And all the stuff that he did when he was younger.
And also,
but no, we're okay
don't
with
take it literal. Yeah. It's a joke. He's just writing.
Yeah.
Just, you know what I mean?
But they were bad jokes. They were in poor taste.
Yeah, they were in poor taste. But 10 years ago, come on, the guy's grown significantly.
And we live in a different time, man. As much as I hate to talk about outrage culture, like...
Nobody knew Twitter was going to be this big and this essential in our daily, like, lives.
Well, I was just watching Waiting a couple weeks ago, and it's like the humor in Waiting, like, that movie would not fly today. No, and some of the jokes they're making. But it was just a different time. Like, it was...
Oh, yeah. Look at Batman the Animated Series compared to stuff out now, you know?
Yeah.
There was a lot of jokes in there that... over my head as a kid and watching it with my girlfriend now, I'm just like, oh, whoa.
Warner Brothers used to love doing that, dude. They did the Animaniacs too.
Oh, yeah.
But anyways, we're going to get too sidetracked. Anything else about the comedian?
It was terrible.
I'm just like popping down books over here. Sorry, I'm just trying to go through these.
I'm throw these in the fire pit as we go along.
Everyone can't see, but there's a small fire pit off camera, and I'm just throwing them in the fire as we're done.
No value in these at all.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how my next one wound up here. I think I just tossed it here because I was like, oh, I forgot about it.
Okay.
But Bullock.
Yeah, that's what I would have next too, dude. Wow. I feel like we were like really
on the same page.
On the same page.
Yeah, seriously.
Which makes me feel better.
Yeah.
Makes me feel like I wasn't just like hating on something irresponsibly.
Me either. I thought you'd put more thought than I did into it, honestly, because I was just at a certain point, I was just like, this is crap. I'm just going to breeze through this.
Moloch's one of the books too that like I caught myself like skimming a page and then like having to go back and like, oh, let me read it.
Yeah.
No, this is lame.
Yeah, this is okay.
The art style is insane.
Not the best.
Yeah, we talked about it already. It's too cartoony.
Compared to Watchmen and everything else, it just does not work for the character. I think they could have just done something cool. I don't even remember the book, honestly.
Well, his body shape is also just different. He's like tiny and short.
Yeah, and in the movie and in the book, he's a skinny,
lanky.
Like, thin.
Yeah, so they messed that up already.
He looks more like a Harry Potter character, like one of those bank trolls or something. You know what I mean? The goblins. Yeah.
The book is sort of similar to the things you were saying about Rorschach, where it's kind of just like a story that doesn't necessarily even need to be told, and then at the end they end it.
Circle back to the book Watchmen.
Yeah. To where you find him like with shot in the head and everything, or Rorschach finds him.
I feel like all these books depended on that to be their ending. Like, we're gonna go up all the way to Watchmen, and we're gonna tell you what happened to Watchmen.
Well, it's before Watchmen.
Well, tell me what happens before, not leading up to Watchmen. Like
they should call it immediately before Watchmen. That should be the name of the series.
Lead into Watchmen, like
Moloch. I don't even know if he deserved his own book, and even if he did, why a one shot?
Yeah, why was it 2? And a 2 out of all of them being a weird number, like Dollar Bill was 1. Why couldn't this one be 1?
The only 2-parter.
Yeah, just odd.
Yeah, so that was quick. What's your next one?
My next one's Dr. Manhattan.
Dr. Manhattan. Okay, I have some notes on that one. I would have put it above Ozymandias or Ozymandias. But I think there's some argument to be had there. Silk Spectre is the other one I didn't read, just so everyone knows. But you're telling me that one's good.
She wasn't terrible.
Okay,
it was actually kind of fun.
I might have to go back and just read that one again.
I wouldn't say that.
Or read it now. Oh, really? So even
I wouldn't say that for any of these series. If you missed one, you missed one, dude. That's it. Like, if you want to breeze through it, just to look at the art and some of the stuff, it's interesting.
Up till now, all of them have been harsh avoids. Like, don't read, you're wasting time.
I broke out other books and I barely finished this like yesterday. And because I forced myself. Like, it felt like I was doing homework.
Yeah, it felt like homework.
I did homework instead of reading before watching it, actually.
Dr. Manhattan, I would say if you're a die-hard Watchmen fan, it's worth reading once.
I feel like these last 4 are all, if you're going to read before Watchmen and you don't want to like kill yourself and you don't want to hate it forever, read these last 4 from Dr. Manhattan. From here on out,
read them.
The ones we talk about, you should decently worth reading, just to be like, hey, I'm not a big fan, but I would like to know more.
Yeah. Dr. Manhattan, the core idea behind the book is quantum theory.
Yeah.
And it's about, they use a lot of Schrodinger's cat, like Schrodinger's box, that all moments and all possibilities exist in the present at the same time.
Yeah.
And I even wrote this in my notes. There's nothing really new to the story.
Nothing.
Which I wrote that because this was the first one I read. But
there's a part at the end of it where
I forgot what you're talking about.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll let you continue.
Oh, no, that's okay. Well, the part with Ozymandias, is that what you're talking about? Or what are you talking about?
Yeah, where he's like, I've already, I went and explored all these different options, and no matter what, the ending is the same, and I can't fix it, so this is the one I'm choosing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I was like, that's cool.
The thing it offers more clarification to the character's motivation. The thing I was talking about, though, was you see the moment where Veidt convinces Dr. Manhattan to work with him on what was supposed to be the renewable power.
Yeah.
And if you were reading Watchmen, you could say like, well, how come Dr. Manhattan wouldn't just know that he was tricking him?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They also clarify in this book, which I thought was kind of interesting, is that John is not omnipresent. and he's not omnipotent. He's not all knowing. He doesn't know everything.
He just sees his future.
He sees his future and he sees all the possibilities of his future and the past. So it's not like he can
see everything.
Everything. So, and frequently, and especially when we start talking about Doomsday Clock right now, they write Dr. Manhattan like he's God.
Yeah.
And I think Alan Moore wasn't like, yes, there's some God symbolism, but it's also just like the introduction of a superhuman.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dr. Manhattan, though, he has this meeting with Ozymandias, and Ozymandias is saying, and what I thought was like some of the best parts of Before Watchmen, he's saying like, right now I'm lying to the most like powerful person in the universe, and Dr. Manhattan would be able to see inside.
He has to keep his like breathing straight,
and his heart rate.
Yeah,
because he could see inside him.
Perfect presence.
So he reveals that John's only weakness is that he can be lied to. And he can believe a lie if you're convincing enough. So I thought that was kind of cool.
I thought that was super cool. You're right.
And that's the big moment. And I think it happens in the last issue.
Is it in Ozymandias or is it in Dr. Manhattan?
It's in Dr. Manhattan.
Oh, okay, cool. I thought it was in Ozymandias.
Well, is it too? I don't know. I know for sure it's in Dr. Manhattan. I also like that the art. I like the art style a lot.
Adam Hughes is awesome. Yeah.
It kept the same tone, and they also some books did, some books didn't, but it used the grid from
very
Watchmen.
well. Yeah, and honestly, these last 4 series did that gridding very well, where it kept it to that 9-panel and only larger panels in specific moments.
It matches the tone. Where like something like Comedian didn't have that going on
at all,
and it just felt like you were reading a different book. It didn't feel like you were reading something related to Watchmen. So,
and it was only 4 issues.
It's only 4 issues,
which isn't terrible.
No, it's not.
No, I could read 4 issues of crap, but it was decent crap. You know,
I'm saying like, man, if I had a pair of scissors, and well, I do have a pair of scissors, I'm not going to cut them up, but you could cut these books up into one book.
Yeah.
You could snip out the parts that are important and cut them into 24 pages, and you'd be like, okay.
32 max.
Yeah.
You know?
Maybe one slightly bigger book. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I'm good with it, like slightly oversized, you know, story, but
everything feels a little bit bloated. Yeah.
I did like the covers for this. Bill Sienkiewicz did an awesome cover to issue 4 I really enjoyed. And there's some of the artwork that where Dr. Manhattan splitting stuff apart and you see different timelines of him and stuff like that. It's freaking cool.
Yeah. And it's cool because it goes back into the quantum theory thing. Yeah. Like there are so many options.
And the way the panels split up in that same thing, like the artwork is just really great in it. Anything else on Dr. Manhattan?
I'm okay, man. Unless you have something else you wanted to bring up, but I thought that
it covered everything.
You know, nothing else by issue 4.
Yeah,
just check out that last one. It's pretty good.
My next one is actually Ozymandias.
Yeah, I'd say so too.
So Ozymandias, it's basically. It wasn't terrible. I really like J.D.'s art. A lot of people don't like J.D.'s art. But I feel like it's very sharp and smooth and like it has like the pointiness to everything in the right places. And I think it's just really like interesting. And I want to say it's his wife or his girlfriend or something that does the coloring.
Oh, really?
And it just goes really nicely to his like dark tone.
It's very contrasting to Watchmen, but I think it works.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't feel like lazy. It feels like they're trying their own art style. And it fits in with the story.
It's very
and
distinct, from J.D. Who wrote it? Len Wein actually wrote this one. And it's way better than Len's other work in the stories. But it talks about Ozymandias, how he started off as a kid and how he grew into power and events that led him into like ways of thinking. And I love how you get to see these events and then how his thinking transforms. And then an event and he transforms again and he's always adapting to like what's happening around him, which makes him so great, you know? I love how it shows him as a kid getting beat up and holding and like training himself and then beating up these kids and being like, hey, like I warned them, I told them, and I waited and they pick on me every day. And then I whooped the hell out of them once. And then just being smarter than everybody else always, and his adventures and his like learning of Alexander and how he goes through those trials and everything, and he takes the hashish and trips out and all that. And then you see how he had that love interest, which was kind of funny because like Rorschach's like, I think he might be gay. Need to look into that.
yeah, that's funny.
And you know, this girl dies. She kills herself basically because Ozymandias was like ignoring her.
Yeah.
And Moloch does it, right? Yeah. And I thought that was a cool little tie-in to like that character being involved in his life early on. But it just goes on too long and too far. Like, this could have been 4 issues, and I would have been happy if they chopped it at issue 4.
And I was going to say, like, Comedian, Ozymandias, and Minutemen are the only 6-issue series.
They could have all been 4.
Yeah.
Or 3.
Yeah.
Max.
Or Comedian 1.
Yeah, Comedian 1.
Or
yeah.
none.
Yeah.
If it's written
Honestly.
that way. Yeah. Ozymandias is a good one. I like how you actually get to see the origins of the character.
Yeah.
And I feel like the other ones didn't do that. Like Dr.
At all.
Manhattan pretty much, you get a little bit more. Like there's a thing about him in World War II and his parents like sneaking him
that's right.
around. That was kind of cool. And he was like in the box and not in the box and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But like Comedian, I didn't get to see what made the comedian.
No.
And he's a character who really
you see it
doesn't
more
have
in
a
the
backstory.
Minutemen than anything else.
Yeah, the Minutemen does a way better job of showing his progression.
And that's the one I wanted to see. I wanted to see his teenage years and whatnot, you know? Like, why is he so crazy and, like, messed up, you know? But that's very true. I don't know. I enjoyed Ozymandias. I read and I love the paneling. It is different from the 9-panel gridding, but some of the panels are so freaking cool in that.
Yeah.
And some of the the layouts are freaking awesome. I don't know. It's worth checking out for sure.
Yeah.
And it leads you into Watchmen and his way of thinking and how he gets to the point of like where he made this plan. And it shows him setting up the islands and how he makes his own money and gives away everything and, you know, how he reacts when his parents die, I think, and his first encounter with the comedian and stuff like that. And why he gives up being a superhero. And it's very well planned. All of it, you know? And I thought that's why it was great, because Watchmen is very well planned. Like, every step makes sense, and every step is that adaptation to the environment, and super cool.
It's a good supplement. I think in Watchmen, he's the only character that it's hard to entirely get behind his mindset.
Yeah.
Like, you can understand Dr. Manhattan, you can understand all the other characters, but Ozymandias has such a twisted view on reality. And at the same time, you can kind of be like, well, it's sort of justified.
Yeah.
He's like a great supervillain because he doesn't realize he's the villain. And that's like, goes back to like Unbreakable or something. Like the person who doesn't know that they're the bad guy, that's the real bad guy.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was cool to get a good background story on him. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with you, man. It's a good one to check out for sure.
My next one, I know you didn't get to read it. And honestly,
Oh, okay. I'm glad.
I was going to avoid reading it. I only read it because I was like, you know what? I'm just going to kill this because I have to do it. And that way the last one I read sounds like something I want to read. But Silk Spectre. Honestly, not bad. Not only did it have a great cast writing it and drawing it, excuse me, Amanda Connor, I believe she wrote it, I want to say. Let me check this out real fast. Her and Darwin Cook both wrote it. And Amanda Connor drew it. Amanda Connor she's been around for a while, but she got really big with the recent Harley Quinn series from the New 52.
Okay.
Yeah, she totally changed the character, and it just upped sales.
Wow.
I mean, she's a big reason why Harley Quinn became so popular recently. And, you know, some of the... I was like, what do you have to say about Silk Spectre? You know what I mean? But that's
the reason I didn't read it, to be honest.
Yeah, no,
she's
honestly.
my least, like, she's the character I don't like the most, like,
in the movies and the comics.
I'm not interested
and
in
it's
her.
not because she's a female character or anything.
No,
but
that's what I'm saying. No, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. Seriously, I'm just joking. You get everything. I feel like in Watchmen, you get what you need to know.
Because in Watchmen, you're just like, all right, she grew up in her mom's shadow, and now she's dating this like super intense like meta-human that's like a god almost, and her life's miserable, you know, and she just wants to be happy, and she just can't catch a break, you know. I actually thought in Watchmen her character portrayal was a lot stronger in the comic than in the movies. In the movie, I felt like she seemed strong because she could just like break a guy's arm without even trying.
Because everyone in that movie was on roids.
But I felt like as a character, she seemed too tortured and too upset. I feel like in the comics, she was more optimistic and like a stronger female presence than anything. And here in the comic, she really does prove that. And it's kind of a teenage growing up, and she's like sick of her mom, and she ends up running away. And then she meets this guy, and it's this whole like hippie like psychedelic thing, and she does these drugs, and then like the boyfriend she's with ends up like overdosing, and she goes and she like finds boots and everything and dresses up, and she fights these people that like are drugging these kids.
Oh, okay.
And all this crazy stuff happens, but like there's little moments in it that break the artwork. Like it's like the standard artwork, and then you have a very cartoony moment.
Oh,
and
okay.
it works really well
okay.
though. Like, and it's like, oh, that's cool. You know what I mean? The way they just toss it in, it's fun. You know what I mean? It's really fun. And I always like that whole 60s like psychedelic type of look. So that was a lot of fun too.
And you can get that just from the covers. There's one in the background of Brandon over there by Gizmo. And this one too even has some of that stuff going on. But all of them have a really cool 60s vibe to them for sure. Yeah.
And the villain she fights and how it kind of ties into the first Night Owl too. And he ends up helping her out towards the end. And then it shows her come back to her mom. And you could see the struggle she had with her mom and how she was trying to overcome him and how she was in her mom's shadow, but she created her own self. You finally see her become like her own Silk Spectre, you know, and take that role and that name and carry it on. And I was like, dang, that's really like surprising. You know, I didn't think I'd enjoy that series as much as I did. And is it 4 issues? Yeah. It was a good length. It could have been 2, could have been 3, but as 4 issues, it was not bad. I did enjoy all 4 issues.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I definitely checked that one out. Surprisingly amazing.
Oops, dropped my pencil over here. Cool. You know what? I might go back and read that one, then we'll see.
Yeah. Just it's 4 issues. Check it out. Just knock it out and be like, at least I read something decent out of this whole stupid event.
Out of all this headache. Well, this arrives at our number 1. And for me, I would agree that it would be number 1. I mean, to be honest, there's not much competition. I think Minutemen is essentially an in-depth under the hood. It's told from the perspective of Night Owl.
I think it's the only before Watchmen that should have come out.
Yeah, well, it makes sense because that literally is before Watchmen.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, that's it.
And they could have worked in these little stories.
Why didn't they give us a 12-issue Minutemen story?
Yeah.
That would have been funner.
And have the last couple issues be like young Watchmen.
And
like,
you know what's cool about Minutemen? I just thought of this. Like, but they don't really show the events that happen in the comic already. Like when it goes through, like, for a big example, the rape scene of Silk Spectre. Yeah. They don't show it. It's like after the whole fiasco with the comedian.
What happens after he leaves the room.
And then you're just like, oh, that just happened. And now we're picking up right after it. They didn't show it, didn't talk about it. It just we're picking up after and how they're dealing with that situation. And I was like, good. We already know what happened. We've all read that book. It's, you know, we've all seen that movie.
Why redraw it? Why retry to create the same impact?
They're not using that to fall on to fill the book. They're giving us all information and story, when some of these other stories that they had, they lean too much on Watchmen and they fill in their pages with the events from Watchmen, which is pointless because it's fucking Watchmen.
We already have Watchmen. Yeah. The first issue is specific origins. Like every 2 or 3 pages is one of the Minutemen.
Good introductory to everything. That's
my favorite issue of all of Before Watchmen. Minutemen 1. You get a nice little intro. You get to see them all in action and kind of see stuff. I really liked the Hooded Justice one. Yeah. They have all these great reds that like take up the whole panel. That's really cool stuff.
Well, even in the last issue when they introduced the new characters, that giant, and Darwin Cook wrote and drew this, by the way.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Where they have Dr. Manhattan, and it's that full page spread, but it's still like 9 panels, and all the gun parts are still broken up in each panel. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
That was great.
What was I going to say?
The most we see the comedian as a teenager.
You also, so that's one thing that surprised me. They put a date, or they put an age on the comedian. Yeah. They say that he's 16.
Yeah, when he first joins.
When they do Minutemen.
And he's already like busting up people in bars and taking out a whole,
So that really puts a different kind of idea on that character to me.
Well, I think that's good because you figure his age when he's in Vietnam and when he goes to join, you know, the next set of Minutemen that they try to put together. Yeah. Like, I really like how they're like, dude, this guy was young. And so it gives him justice, like when it's 1985. Yeah. You know?
I think that's cool. There's a lot of sad parts. I mean, if you want to say it's sad, like basically like you kind of start with all the Minutemen and then they all like drop off until you get to the end. Yep. And it's basically like all that's left is Night Owl and Mothman.
And Mothman's in the sane asylum.
Well, towards the end, like it leads all the way, and you get to see every piece of him getting crazier and crazier and all the stuff he has to see.
His alcoholism and all that.
Yeah, and then it ends with him getting locked up.
Which is great. And I thought that was good. You got to see these characters transform. You got to see them grow. You got to see their mindsets change. And
you also get to see Hooded Justice's demise. So,
whoa, it was crazy. I thought that was very interesting how he did that.
Yeah, me too. So Comedian basically like tricked Night Owl into killing someone else, and Comedian killed Hooded Justice, and it confirms that Hooded Justice was the strong man that they talk about in Under the Hood.
Yeah.
So something is confirmed from Watchmen, which I think is pretty cool. You get to see the Comedian kill him, and then you essentially get to see the Comedian like destroy Minutemen, like what's left of it, by causing Night Owl to kill an innocent man, essentially.
Yeah.
And when he kills Hooded Justice too, basically he like tackles this guy really hard, and
he just grabs the noose
and
chokes him out. You see the crack.
Yeah,
and then
that's
SFX,
it, man.
Yeah. And then you also see that event that made him completely stop, which is where the kid and his dad are trying to stop the atomic thing from blowing up.
Yeah.
And then he finds out he shoots the kid's grandfather, and that the dad and this kid teamed up to stop this because they knew it was going to happen. And it was the kid's idea to dress up as superheroes to do it.
Yeah.
And then he was just like, man, he stayed with the kids. And even though the whole story was covered up by the government, he stayed with the kid and was like, you guys were heroes and everybody knows that you were heroes. And what you did, like, saved the whole city and all this. And the kid's mutating from all the radiation he took in. And you feel so much like sympathy for him at that point. And like, you're like, wow, no wonder he stopped. Like, stuff like this messes you up, you know? Like,
You also get to see, I feel like I'm going to mess this up. It's not the Keene Act. You get to see the superheroes like in court. It's the pre-Keene Act. Yeah. It's the one where they had to reveal their identities and sign that oath of allegiance.
All fumbling with the mic and everything.
And it's like, man, that's it. Like that guy's done.
Yeah.
This is way too much pressure for all these guys.
It was genuinely like a pretty interesting story.
Yeah.
You know, again, it could have been 4 issues. 5. It could have been summed up a bit more, but for what it was, it was efficient. It was literally before Watchmen. Because the book barely comes out under the hood as the story ends, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It covers the whole thing. It's from the very first minute the Minutemen are together.
And then to the
last. Yeah.
And then and then you see the new age of superheroes coming out towards the end of it. I thought it was great. And I thought Darwin Cook's artwork was perfect. I like some of the little inserts they had. How when they kick out the comedian for raping the Silk Spectre, how it shows him that
attempting to rape. I feel like we should clarify that. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess this isn't an attempt.
He doesn't actually do it. Yeah. In the movie and in the book, it feels like it is because he beats her up really bad.
Yeah, really bad. Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true. I always just kind of regard it because it's Alan Moore. I just
because it's Alan Moore. Yeah, you expect it.
Pretty much all of his stories have almost rape happened.
Something, yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever read The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen?
I haven't read it actually. I've only seen the movie way too many times. that movie that killed Sean Connery's career.
Yeah. Went into the shadows and never came out of that.
Quick fun fact too: like Sean Connery was offered the role of Gandalf in Lord of the Rings. He turned it down because he couldn't understand the material. He was like, I don't really understand what the story's about. And he turned it down. And instead of Lord of the Rings, he took League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Well, thank God.
And that's literally the end of his career. Like, he never bounced back after that like huge box office disappointment.
He should just come back as James Bond one more time.
That's crazy. Well, you know what? There's something I saw online, and this is even more of a sidetracking, but it was literally just a poster. Because there's all this talk about, like, is James Bond a different person every time?
Oh, yeah.
Or is he, like, and up until, because I've seen all the James Bonds.
Yeah, me too.
What?
Yeah, big James Bond fan, actually.
Hey, girl.
Yeah. Did not know this.
Up until the Daniel Craig one, it is all the same person. Which doesn't make sense because he's literally fighting like...
It's like Batman and then Batman Returns and then Batman Forever. You're like what?
He just never ages and like, but the world around him, it's like the South Park kids, like 20 years pass and they're still 5th graders or whatever, or 4th graders. But in that...
Well, they clarify that it does change with the Daniel Craig one. It's like he's the new 007.
And Daniel Craig's the new one. So I saw this fan poster that was essentially like, what if Daniel Craig has to kill, like, Sean Connery James Bond joins Spectre and like turns evil. And then there's a James Bond movie where it's literally Daniel Craig trying to kill Sean Connery and they're both James Bond. Because Daniel Craig's like his replacement. You know what I mean?
That'd be great.
Sort of like a GoldenEye kind of thing, but instead of it being 006, it's the old 007.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
That'd be a cool movie, man.
That's how they should do the next one.
I'll have to show you that poster. But anyways.
Way off.
Anyway.
That's how sick of Before Watchmen we are. Anything will distract us from this.
So I don't think it even needs to be said, but a hard pass on Before Watchmen. Other than those last ones, and I would even say, like, don't buy them if they're $3. If you can get Minutemen for $1 an issue, okay. If you can read it online, okay. But it's not even
honestly,
worth...
if you could get the whole series for like $20, I would say do it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't spend more than $30 on this entire series.
I'm going so far as to say, if you have like Dollar Bill, Moloch, Night Owl, I'll take Rorschach on your word, Comedian. If you have those and you're like me and you just never got around to reading them,
just toss them.
They're not worth it. I don't even know who you're going to sell them to. Who's going to want to buy it?
You're going to want to put them in a... I mean, we live on the border, dude. Just have a garage sale. Get rid of them that way. Like, that's the only way. Put them 50 cents a book.
50 cents.
Sell them to a grandma that doesn't know anything. Be like, hey, show your kid some comics. 50 cents. I'll do it for a quarter a piece.
Do it for
give you a deal.
10 cents. Get these comedians out of here. Oh, my gosh.
If you look at them any longer, they're free. Just take them.
You're the only person who's asked about them. Just grab them and get out of here.
I won't question it. They're one of those things that... Honestly, because I sell stuff on eBay, I might just slip an issue in whenever I sell stuff.
Really?
I was just to have a little bonus and be like, there's
so you sell books on eBay, like comic books?
Like the CGC stuff we see here, I usually put them up on eBay, make a couple bucks on them.
So what do you think? Do you think like you could even set, like, if you just were like, here's all of Before Watchmen and you put them on eBay?
Maybe. Because, for one, a Watchmen omnibus, a Before Watchmen omnibus just came out a few weeks ago. And I was very tempted to be like, hey, you know what? I have the series. I don't have all of it, though.
Yeah.
I haven't read it before. I want to read it. Maybe I should get this Before Watchmen omnibus and have them all right here for me.
Yeah.
And now that I've read them, thank God I didn't.
Yeah, it's been a waste of money.
But, I mean, potentially, it sounded cool.
Yeah.
I was excited to read Before Watchmen, Mm-hmm. I was pretty much like, hey, I've heard stuff about it, but hey, it's Watchmen. How bad can it be? It's Before Watchmen. There's these legendary creators on there. Lynn Wein with Darwin Cook and Amanda Connor, like Lee Bermejo. But some amazing creators on there.
Yeah.
I was totally down. And if I put them up, I'm sure I could sell them. And if I put them up cheap, I'll for sure sell them. You know what I mean? Because someone can be like, hey, I want to read this because I haven't, and it's Watchmen. This guy's selling the whole series for $40.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I might try that. I don't know. So basically, if you have Watchmen, try and trick someone into buying them off of you.
quick before they read it.
Yeah, quick before they hear this podcast. Try and sell them. Yeah. Wow. Okay, so let's move on, man. What did you want to talk about next?
Let's go to some cool stuff.
Let's do it.
Let's have some fun, some positivity in this podcast. I don't know how long this has been going on for.
Too long.
I know. It's out of our system.
It's been like 5 minutes.
I'm never going to go back to... Yeah, it's one of those where you're just like, man, this episode sucks. Yeah. Oh, I've only heard 5 minutes. It feels like it's been an hour. Dude, DC brought back Watchmen. I was at New York Comic Con when they were doing the announcement for Doomsday Clock.
Okay.
Like, I wanted to make it to the panel, but I couldn't.
Okay.
But Jeff Johns, and Gary Frank and Brad Anderson, for one, they're like, that set of team is just like Frank Miller with Klaus Johnson, or like Jim Lee with Alex Sinclair and Scott Williams, or Lynn Wein and Bernie Wrightson. These guys are a team at this point. These guys understand each other, and they just like knock out stuff in the most awesome way possible. Yeah. They worked on Batman Earth 1 together. Okay. And Volume 3 is coming out soon. But the first 2 volumes, I don't know if you've read them, but they are awesome. And I love Gary Frank's artwork. I think it's not too realistic. It's not too cartoony, but it has like force and oomph to it. Cool. You know what I mean? Brad Anderson, I think he's the colorist. God, I feel bad. Maybe he's the inker. I don't know. I met him, though. He's a real nice guy. And Jeff Johns. Dude, Jeff Johns has redone everything in the most epic way. He did an epic JSA run. He brought back Barry Allen from the grave because he's been dead since the 80s when A Crisis on Infinite Earths happened. That's where he died. And then he brought back Hal Jordan Green Lantern. My personal favorite Green Lantern. He's just done so much cool stuff for DC. And he's just He did Blackest Night. Have you read Blackest
I
Night?
haven't read Blackest Night.
Oh man.
That's a Green Lantern book, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't really read any Green Lantern, to be honest.
Ooh.
Maybe like a little bit when I was a kid, but
Dude, that's honestly, it was Jeff Johns' Flash and Green Lantern. I happened to get those series when I was trying to get back into comics. Not only as a kid, but like 5 years ago when I was like, hey, I want to get back into comics and I want to read some of this. The Flash sounds cool. I'll get this Rebirth series.
Okay.
Because when I was a kid, I remember my grandma taking me to the comic store and I wanted to buy all of the Green Lantern Rebirth series. And it was $40. And my grandma was like, I'm not buying you that for $40.
Yeah.
Like, she's like, that's... No.
Way
and
too
I was
much.
like, please. And she's like, fine, your dad's paying me back as soon as we get home.
Oh, okay.
And I love that series. Green Lantern Rebirth. I've read it so many times. The books are beat up. I need to get like a hardcover edition of that. But dude, Jeff Johns has just transformed. He's actually doing so much of the DC Universe stuff with the television shows with Titans and Doom Patrol. He's in charge of a lot of that. I love the guy. And I haven't gotten to meet him. Kato, my girlfriend, got to meet him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, lucky. I was just like, thank God she got my book signed, though.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
But actually, this book, the Doomsday Clock variant, is signed by Jeff Johns and Brad Anderson. And
It's really cool.
I go to, this is my like third, fourth year going to cons, and I finally got his signature, but I wasn't the one who got him. But every year I try to get a signature, and I never get it. But I just love these guys. I think it's an excellent team. Which is funny, because this all starts with DC Rebirth. He does this whole Rebirth thing. He's really good at like reinvigorating characters and ideas and just the DC universe as a whole. So all of this is starting because he's like, I want to bring back Watchmen into the DCU because it's under DC and we own it. We should bring it and fuse it together. And everyone was like, what?
Yeah, which was my reaction too.
Mine too, yeah. And
excuse me?
I don't know if it's changed just yet.
Okay.
Because we're not that far into the story. While we're recording this, we've just read issue 8.
8, yeah. So we got 4 more.
Yeah, still 4 more. And I can't be a big judge of it because if you read the first 8 issues of Watchmen, you'd probably be like, I'm confused.
That's true. And there are some storylines that you can tell aren't paying off yet.
Yeah.
And there's some stuff where right now you're like, what's going on? And then hopefully by the end of these next 4 issues, it's going to tie it up in a neat little bow.
And it's supposed to get kind of crazy after this, too. Okay. And I could see why.
Well, the last issue 8 ends on a crazy event.
Yeah.
Like, it really... So you're like, like, shit, what?
Yeah.
What's going on here?
But all of this started because the New 52, which was a relaunch in 2011 by DC, it didn't get the same reaction, or it didn't get the reaction they wanted out of it.
Yeah.
There was a lot of relationships that were missing in the New 52 between characters, a lot of ways of thinking, a lot of like morals that were kind of missing. Some of the stories, like the Batman one by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo, epic and amazing, but there was just the heart was missing out of the DC universe, you know, and some great characters just they didn't know where to place them because the timeline was so messed up. So what they did was like, hey, let's throw all this like failure and just blame it on Dr. Manhattan.
Okay.
And they basically relaunched DC in 2015 and 16, I want to say. Because, 2016 with DC Rebirth. It was a one-shot special.
Yeah.
And basically it basically covers how one of the main characters, Wally West, the original Wally West, has been missing for a while. And they never brought him into the New 52.
Okay.
They kind of redid the character completely with a new guy, new origin, instead of being this like white, orange-haired nephew from Iris.
Okay.
It's just this. It's one of the villains. It's a new Reverse Flash. It's his nephew, and it's this black kid.
Okay.
And so now there's 2 Wallies, which is crazy. But the old Wally West is kind of traveling through the Speed Force, trying to find an anchor and to come back so that they could remember him and he could be back in in the universe, in reality. And apparently Dr. Manhattan, when he left the Watchmen universe, he found the DC universe and was just like, I'm going to spin all this together and I'm going to redo it.
Yeah.
And then...
Which, in the story, though, it's not like Manhattan brings them in necessarily.
No, yeah.
If anything, he's escaping, and it's not confirmed yet what his motivation is, but it's suggested that he's there because he fits in more.
Yeah.
That he feels more like Like he's not just a total outsider. Like he's the only one like that.
Oh, with powers and everything.
With powers and everything. I don't know if that's exactly what it is yet.
I could see that completely. From the news sources I've read, it's the reason why they blamed it on him was because since he's so kind of out of touch with humanity, and the New 52 is so out of touch with humanity, he's the one that redid the timeline and kind of played and programmed things.
Okay.
And that's why it was so bleak and dark and kind of weird. And then he realizes this, I guess, and then resets it, and that's where Rebirth comes. Is that how the Rebirth comic plays out? I think. I'm pretty sure. They don't exactly say it, but it's pointing in that direction, you know? But it starts with that issue, and then it does the Button storyline with because all of a sudden the comedian's Button winds up in the Batcave.
Yeah.
And they can't figure out where it came from. The blood doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden Reverse Flash, who died in Flashpoint, shows up out of nowhere and just beats the hell out of Bruce in less than a minute. And I thought that was one of the coolest issues because there's a timer going on. And certain panels, it's not only second by second, but it's like second 26, second 26, second 27, and second 28, second 29, second 20. You know what I mean? And like 1 second takes up more than one panel. And it's so cool you could play with time in comic books like that, you know? And then I guess the Reverse Flash sees Dr. Manhattan and Manhattan kills him.
Yeah, I guess.
Pretty much.
Which is what I feel like about a lot of Doomsday Clock and this other thing. Like, I guess this happened. Was that Dr. Manhattan? Yeah, there's a lot of that kind of feelings.
And it's really hard to say. I just want to get all the DC stuff out of the way first. It's pretty hard to say what's going on because even in the current issues coming out now, some of the events are taking place post and pre Doomsday Clock.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay.
Brian Bendis said that everyone was questioning in Superman issue, I think number 3. They're like, hey, why is Barry's hair red? And it's not normally like that. He's like blonde typically. And he's like, oh, this is post Doomsday Clock.
Interesting.
And then you're just like, so
what happens in Doomsday Clock?
And also they pushed back Doomsday Clock to bi-monthly instead of monthly to make sure it was the best it could be quality wise.
Learning from their mistakes.
Yeah, honestly. Well, I mean, it's weird because it's I'm intrigued by the stories and the characters. I don't know if I agree with a lot of it. We'll get into that.
Cool.
But I don't know. Like, it's just not. It's not paying off yet. So it's hard to judge. Yeah. To me, I don't think it's paying off yet. Yeah.
I can see it's definitely a lot of build up. Like, and it seems like everything's going to resolve at one time.
Yeah.
In this last issue, there was a little bit of, like, at least something was, like, monumental was happening. But we'll have to see exactly what it is. Well, do you want to jump into Doomsday Clock?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I have some notes, like, by issue almost, pretty much.
Okay, cool. Let's kick it off from there.
Yeah, well, let's start at the beginning. So we start off in the Watchmen universe, in the Watchmen universe that we know from reading it.
It's 1992 now.
It's 1992, and as I predicted in the end of our Watchmen podcast, it all fell apart.
Ozymandias' plan, just everyone found out, and then the world went to hell again.
Yeah, and if anything, even worse, maybe, is literally chaos. Something I thought was really funny. I took a couple notes on it because you get a lot of news reports at the beginning.
A lot. I think almost an overwhelming, overwhelming amount. Yeah.
Well, the thing that cracked me up though is comic books always do such a good job of like poking at real life politics. But there's one little line of dialogue where it says, "Hundreds have broken through the wall and flooded into Mexico."
Yeah.
So it was like
we built the wall. Of what's going on? Yeah.
But then we had to get out of the United States because it was so messed up. And then the next, like the panel right before it has another news channel that says, "President scored a hole in one today, beating his previous record." It's like, wow. So the president's playing golf.
Yeah.
While the country is going to hell.
Which
is
like, perfect right now.
Wonder who they could be talking about.
And it's crazy because even with the refugees we have going on in like the Tijuana Bridge and everything, it's just like, oh guys, this is us trying to get to their country now,
Yeah, right. Insane. Oh, but it's us. So, oh my gosh, I'm going to edit you out so much this episode.
Really?
You need to control yourself.
Oh man.
William F. Buckley is like a news anchor, and I don't know if you're familiar with William F. Buckley Jr., but he's basically like one of the most famous conservatives in the United States, and he's kind of like one of the founders of like libertarian ideology. So I thought it was like a really interesting thing that they just put William F. Buckley Jr. as a news anchor in this thing. It really cracked me up, but that's just some weird side stuff. You get introduced to some new characters from Watchmen, which are the Mime and the Marionette. There are a couple. The mime obviously doesn't speak.
Mm-hmm.
And the marionette, when I saw the covers of Doomsday Clock, I thought it was just Harley Quinn.
Yeah, I thought it was like a redone way to do her. And all that, like a future way that they're going to do her,
In the thing, they're busting out marionette and mime. Mm-hmm. And before they leave, they ask to get his weapons. And then you go see his weapons and he grabs like nothing. And later you find out it's something else, but at first he's just holding nothing. And you're like, what?
Yeah, you feel like it's almost too cheesy at that point.
It's too cheesy, I mean? But it kind of pays off depending on how you want to look at it.
I want to see how that character uses his powers. Yeah. I like Mariette, because she has the string, and the string is like what chops stuff in half. But Mime, like he's already shooting people in the head.
Well, what I was thinking, because they show it a little bit later in one of the fight scenes, and I could be wrong, but it makes it seem like he has an invisible gun. Like he has a real gun, but it's just invisible. It's like see-through. And it doesn't make a lot of sense. But there's a scene where he's shooting some of the Joker's henchmen and the light like glimmers on it and you see the faint outline like if you're like it's the Predator or something, like it's under active camouflage.
I gotta look at that.
Yeah, I'll have to show it to you. So, but then that still doesn't make sense how there's a see-through gun. I mean, that's not much justification.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, it seems like, he's just pointing his fingers at people and then he shoots someone in the head. And you're like, whoa, what? It's really crazy.
It's kind of curious because then if he has like a superpower, Manhattan's not the only one with a superpower then.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that it's supposed to be an invisible gun. Mm-hmm. And if you think about it, Rorschach has like an unexplainable mask as well. So it kind of fits in with Watchmen.
I just hope they explain it though.
I hope they do too.
Because at least with Rorschach, it's unexplainable because it's something that's really bizarre, but they do explain how he got it and where he got it from,
Yeah.
But so I don't know. I'm kind of still on the fence with those two.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think they're interesting characters.
But I like how they related it. How it kind of does fit in that style of a character in the Watchmen universe.
I could see it for sure. Especially when we get a little bit later. There's some more to that. This seems even more Watchmen. There's a new Rorschach, which at the first part, it's Rorschach. And then you're not sure what's going on.
Yeah.
And you're like, what? And then it's kind of hinted that he's not Rorschach.
Yeah.
And so at this point, you don't know who it is. But I just thought it was very comic booky that someone dies and you just replace him with someone else.
Yeah.
And it kind of reminded me like of Night Owl in a weird way. That like Night Owl's just, they carry on the name.
I saw that. Like I felt the same way. I just didn't like their approach with this Rorschach character.
He's weird. He's not the same kind of character at all. He's kind of goofy.
Yeah.
And he's got a weird sense of humor and he's obsessed with pancakes.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure where the pancake motivation's from.
Dude, that even happens before Watchmen where he's like, his breakfast he eats every day, it's like pancakes and eggs or something.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, something like that. And they make Rorschach a breakfast character. It's weird. Like, I swear.
I don't know how that...
his origins. Do you like this new Rorschach's origins and how it came about?
The new Rorschach's origins, I think it's an interesting take on the character. And here's some pancakes for everybody. I think it's an interesting take on the character. I'm not totally sold on him yet. And I kind of dig that he's the same kind of character. Like he's got a lot of anger and he's also seems very like 100% committed. That's what I always got from Rorschach, like unwavering. And I kind of get that feeling from the new Rorschach.
I see that completely. I just don't like how they made him also talk like the previous Rorschach when it should be...
It seems weird.
Yeah, like how he didn't know the guy. I mean, besides the notes he's read, the few notes he's read, because he didn't know everything until later on.
That's true.
Yeah, there was a lot of the pages that the guy was holding out, but how does he know his like way of dialogue and speech? And how does he, like, once you go crazy in that universe, you just talk like...
It's the spirit of the mask, Brandon. Yeah. It's the spirit of the mask.
That's what I got from it. And I was like, all right, I guess
that's a good point.
But I mean, and him as a son to the psychiatrist, Alan Moore never put that guy to have a son. It seemed like it was just him and his wife the whole time.
Yeah.
So,
true.
I mean, it was a sly way to slip it in, but I thought it could have been done better.
A little ham-fisted, maybe. Yeah. Maybe he didn't have to be so connected. Like, he could have just been someone. But... Who knows? Who knows? Yeah. We'll have to see what else they come up with. What else do I have for the first issue? Well, the big theme of Doomsday Clock is like God and God's plan and like, what is being destined and all this stuff. The issue ends with Superman and he has a nightmare
Yeah.
And he wakes up in the middle of the night
and he sees his parents' death, right?
Yeah. And he tells Lois, like, I don't think I've ever had a nightmare before.
Yeah.
And then okay, something's up.
Something's weird, yeah.
Something weird's going on.
I thought the formatting was really good. But he tries... Do you agree with him formatting it just like the original Watchmen? Like copy and paste almost?
I think it kind of feels right. I don't know. I sort of like it. I
can see that. No, yeah, no.
The paneling's right. And even the beginning kind of starts off the same sort of way with like a slow pan.
I think
there's a little bit of that.
Is it still a zoom out? It is, huh?
I think. I need to look again at issue 1.
I want to say it's still... Yeah, it is.
But I just want to remember it being like very similar, and it starts off in the same way.
And it ends with the caption and even has the back pages as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they keep the little bonus reading at the end. They keep the quote and everything.
I hope the back pages pay off as much as they did in the Watchmen book, though. Because so far, some of them feel like they do, and some of them feel like they're just like... Yeah, you put a lot of effort into writing this, but was this the right thing to choose?
Yeah.
You know?
Whereas in the other one, if you didn't read the back pages, you'd miss a big part of the story.
Yeah. And I feel like I could read the back pages here and still have a good idea. Or just read the headlines because there's so many news reports in anything.
Yeah.
This is mostly like newspaper.
A lot of them are. Yeah. A lot of them are newspapers, for sure. Well, in the second issue, we find out that the new Rorschach's name is Reggie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we still don't see his face yet, but we could just talk about it.
Yeah.
Rorschach's like a younger black guy.
Mm-hmm. The psychiatrist's son that evaluated Rorschach from the Watchmen comic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he seems like in his 20s, maybe. He's like a pretty young dude.
Pretty young guy, yeah.
And
they're in Night Owl's hideout.
Yeah, they're in Night Owl's hideout.
You see Ozymandias at the end of issue 1, and now Mime and Mariette are talking to him in Night Owl's hideout, right?
Yeah, because Ozymandias is the one who breaks him out, right? Mm-hmm. And then Rorschach is working with Ozymandias because he thinks that he's like a changed man. Mm-hmm. And essentially their mission is, we need to find Dr. Manhattan, get him back here so he can get us out of this mess.
Yeah, to save the world.
We've really messed this up.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And by we, I mean Ozymandias.
And he's just like, crap. Oh, okay. We forgot to mention this in issue 1.
Yeah.
We find out that Ozymandias has a brain tumor and that he's dying.
Yeah.
And there's scans because they're invading his office in Antarctica. You should see him invade his office in New York and throwing a chair out the window. And then you see that fall the same way the comedian fell.
Yeah.
And you see the scans of his head and there's like a giant brain tumor. So he's basically saying he's dying and needs to save this before he dies, right?
Yeah, and I'm guessing the tumor like changed his perspective.
Yeah.
And I mean, I feel like I don't need to say spoiler alert because obviously we're talking about it, you know.
Yeah.
Hopefully you're not.
You've read it. Yeah.
You've read it, but we find out he's lying later.
Yeah.
And that he's lying to trick Rorschach, which is such an Ozymandias thing to do. He's just lying his way to get what he wants. Mm-hmm. And then Rorschach gets super upset because just like the old Rorschach, you know, he's committed because he thought that that's what they were doing.
Yeah, exactly.
And now Ozymandias, just like with the other Rorschach, is like compromising the values of what they were doing. And, you know, he's not down for that.
It's the same thing. Yeah, same Ozymandias.
It's the same idea,
He hasn't learned it from his mistakes.
Yeah, which is really ridiculous. In issue 2, you also get to see the comedians alive.
Yes, that's right.
They don't explain, and they still haven't explained.
They gave a brief explanation?
I don't know.
He falls through like a time portal or a dimensional break?
They show him getting kicked out of the window and then all of a sudden he falls into the ocean.
Well, he falls and he goes through the ground and he emerges from an ocean.
Yeah.
And the DC universe.
So I guess...
And he's walking up on shore and he's just like, this is not where it was.
So like Manhattan transport? I don't know. I hope it's explained more.
Yeah, I hope it is. Because if not, that's a giant... I feel like that's a giant plot hole that needs to be kind of addressed. You know what I mean?
It really does, yeah.
Like, how does he, get his ass kicked by Ozymandias and then he emerges in the DC universe? Like, where's that portal? Where's that connection? Like, I don't know.
And I don't want to get into what exactly comedian plays in this role because he has some really cool scenes later, I think. He
does.
He has some awesome scenes.
Is it issue 3 where...
Well, I'm thinking like issue 6. But we'll get there right now. Yeah. I'm just glad he's back, and it would have felt weird if he wasn't. And then in the DC side, the big story right now is that Wayne Corp is in danger of being bought out by LexCorp. Mm-hmm. And basically, Lucius Fox is telling, Bruce Wayne, like, dude, we can't get bought out, man, because we have so many secrets here. Like, we are in danger of getting bought out. We need to figure this thing out. We can't have all our secret projects be taken over by LexCorp. You know what he's going to do with them. So that's interesting. And Batman, I don't know if it happens in this one yet, but Batman's having a rough go in this universe.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, and if it's the Batman that's happening right now, I mean, Batman's not in a good spot in the Batman storyline.
Okay.
Like, mentally, he's just not. The whole thing between him and Selena during the whole marriage thing where that didn't happen. And after that, he's just angry and it's intense.
Talk about publicity stunts. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
But it's also the Superman theory that's going on. Yeah.
And what is the Superman theory, pray tell?
So apparently, they believe that, or everything reports. Statistics say that 97% of the world's population of superhumans come from America, and that half of these people are American experiments that they know about it and they're aware of what they're doing, and they're just planning to be more superior, which is crazy because 97%. And then in the Watchmen universe, there's only Dr. Manhattan. So it's kind of that cool contrast, like what you're saying, why he fits in so well. And they're saying that America is basically engineering superhumans to kind of take over the world.
And Russia and Vladimir Putin are like, they're trying to wage war and all this stuff. And it's literally Vladimir Putin in the book.
Yeah. Which is why Doomsday Clock number 8 got leaked.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they had to get his approval since he appeared and spoke in the comic. Wow. And somebody in Russia bought the comic, whatever, a week early because it was released a week early on an app called Madefire. And they leaked it online. So the whole world, the
whole world got to see it. Yeah. And I think, we'll get more into it, but Vladimir Putin's kind of portrayed in a sensible way.
He is, yeah.
He's just like, okay, let's hear what Superman has to say. He has to represent all of humanity. It's like...
And then they changed their minds real fast on that.
They did. And we'll get to that for sure. But yeah, that was pretty crazy, man. That was a big twist, I guess. Let me see, where are we at? So yeah, the Superman theory, really the answer, everyone, is that comic books were written in the United States.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
And in a way, it's sort of a Watchmen-style criticism of comic books.
Yeah.
And that we have all these American characters. That is pretty cool, yeah.
So...
and there was something else, too, that I thought was...
But it turns out some of this is true. That some of them are... engineered, like it's not just like accidents that are happening like they keep on saying, it's that they really are being engineered for this, and they choose some of the most obscure characters ever to do this. Was it like Blue Dragon or Blue Flame or something like that?
And to be honest, I'm glad that you're here with so much knowledge about comic books, because some of these characters I was like, are these real people? Or are these just being made up for DC?
No, they are real in the DC universe.
See, I don't know like all these miscellaneous DC characters.
Some of the back issue stuff, I know there's the ones from China. That's from there was a series called The New Superman or something. And it took place in China, and he was like a Chinese Superman. I've never read it. But it was a really big success. It ended up getting canceled. I think they even had it in Rebirth as well.
Interesting.
With the relaunch.
Didn't they also do a Superman run where he was from Russia?
Oh, Red Sun.
Red Sun. There we go.
Miller did that one.
So they've done this a couple times. Like, what if Superman was somewhere else?
And it's not. Well, that one it is Clark Kent and the Russia and Red Sun.
And that one he just lands in Russia, right? Okay,
exactly. It's a good book. We should talk about.
We should talk about it. That'd be cool. I've always wanted to read it. I've just never read it.
Oh, it's dense, honestly.
Really?
Yeah, 24 issues, prestige format issues, but it's dense. It's a good sized graphic novel. Where was I go? But yeah, some of the characters are super obscure. Mainly they really break into what's Black Adam's country called?
I kept reading
Kodak?
it too. Kodak or something like that.
How he's basically saying like, hey, if you're getting pushed away, come here and you'll have salvation, basically.
Wakanda forever.
Yeah, pretty much. That's the Superman theory. And so basically the world could go to war because essentially they think America's trying to take over everyone. And
it seems like Lex Luthor's like pushing this political agenda too.
Oh yeah, because it's going to take down Superman.
Because it's going to take down and that's all he's concerned about.
And that's all he wants. Yeah. He doesn't care about anything else.
He doesn't care about anything else. This issue ends with Rorschach infiltrating the Batcave, which, first off, I just finished watching all four of the original... I shouldn't say original, but all four of the Batman movies that were like the Tim Burton ones. Because I know the other two aren't Tim Burton.
Yeah.
And I just gotta say, man.
I just saw Batman Returns at the Draft House the other night.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah.
Honestly, that movie was way better than I remembered.
Batman Returns is the best out of those four.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
It's got great visuals.
The plot lines, the way they come back to certain scenes, the beginning and the end of the movie. Oh, so good.
The first Batman has not held up well. I watched that one a little while ago, and I was like, "This is bad."
And that was like for a while my favorite one.
Isn't
and then
that weird?
I rewatched it, and I was like, "Oh man, this is
rough."
You see the strings when he's coming down and everything.
There's some terrible special effects, but even like Jack Nicholson's Joker, it's just so ridiculous now. It just doesn't.
It's
and
a
it's
mix
funny
between the '60s and like that era of comics. Yeah.
And it's like they didn't. What's funny to me is that people were always like, "No one will ever beat Jack Nicholson's performance." And then looking back now, it's like, well, yeah,
all of them have.
Heath Ledger just kind of destroyed it. But in this one, what I was trying to get at though is that I love that Batman's Batcave gets infiltrated so many times
and so easily.
Like, what is Bruce Wayne's security?
Yeah.
And it's
like,
always...
how do you just walk into Wayne Manor like that?
At every story, it's always like there's some ridiculous way to get into the Batcave, like pull this thing, and somehow people always get in there. So Rorschach just waltzes into the Batcave.
Pulls open the clock.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Sure, he's there. And then he sees Batman. He gives him the journal, and he's kind of like, "Oh, you got to read this, and this is what's going on." And then Batman's like, "Oh, okay, come with me. And
he throws him in Arkham Asylum. I do like how issue 2 ends, and then Batman's kind of chill about it, and he's like, "You ate my breakfast."
yeah, because Rorschach goes in and like steals his pancakes.
Yeah. And then the next issue starts off with him being like imagining the prison foods pancakes. And then you have Zebra Man right there too. Yeah. Which I was like, damn, that's a cool little...
That is cool. Yeah. I noticed that too. And that seems just like...
Zebra Man's face, the printing on it, it looks like a nuclear explosion. And that's where he has another flashback.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. That triggers the flashback. Mm-hmm. I was just going to say that scene where he's in line is just like the Walter Kovac scene.
Oh, yeah. Just like
There's a lot of like,
parallels
between the storylines, which is cool. Depends on... I think so far they haven't overdone it to where it's like, oh, really?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay.
I could see that because even, the covers have the same format. Like, if you're going to keep it, they've kept it very uniformed.
Yeah.
And so you could kind of appreciate Doomsday Clock sitting next to Watchmen because of the uniformity. Mm-hmm. So,
and depending on how it ends, it might be a worthy successor. Like, at least, like, it's worth... mentioning in the same name.
Yeah.
Whereas before Watchmen's like, these guys were just trying to steal money. This thing, it's like, hey, we're actually trying to do something.
Yeah.
And we're trying to tell an interesting story. And like...
Do you think it's being too bleak to this DC universe, though?
Well, see, here's the thing, man. I haven't kept up with DC Universe. You know what I mean? So,
in general.
So, to be honest, I think most of DC Universe, movies included, they try being too bleak. And the only one who has any right being bleak is Batman.
Yeah.
But in this scenario, it makes sense because what's happened in Watchmen is now echoing in this universe where they're fed up with superheroes and they want Batman to turn himself in and get rid of him and everything. Although they're still cool with Superman. I like how they're all hating on Batman when the big scare is metahumans and Batman's not even a metahuman. And it's not like they don't know that. They should all know that Batman's not like flying around himself. Like they see him driving a car and like using a zip line and everything.
And he even zip lines over that whole crowd right before that. Yeah.
And there's a hilarious little scene too where Rorschach's like, oh, because like Batman pulls out his little like sleek thing and then Rorschach has that big bulky one. And he's like, wow, that's pretty cool technology. Do you have any extras or anything like that?
Yeah. That
really cracked me up.
I thought it was interesting how Batman read the journal and even for us as readers, you're like, man, he's really kind of teaming up with Rorschach and taking him somewhere.
So too.
I thought he was going to take him to like Psycho Pirate or somebody.
And that honestly, that was like when he locked him up, I was like, oh man.
Yeah. And like, you're just like,
dude, Rorschach, you guys should be like on the same team. You know what I mean?
But I also thought that was a weird thing for Batman to do.
Well, he read this thing and thought this guy was insane. Because the book makes him sound like a crazy person.
That's true too. And he talks just like him too.
Yeah. And he showed up and broke into his house. Like Batman's like, this dude's nuts.
Batman's just throwing him into Arkham Asylum like that.
Which seems heavy. Like Arkham Asylum is like the place people go to never be seen again until they break out inevitably. But it's not like a place that's gone for like, oh, I went to Arkham Asylum to fix my mental health problems.
Well, but he knows all of his secrets.
I guess. Which... that part's dumb. Like, he should not have been able to break into the Batcave.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, and
But
I don't know.
You can't make that as a criticism when in every single one of those Batman movies, someone breaks into the Batcave. Like, it's like every Batman storyline, someone breaks into the Batcave.
Right. And you know what they address it in Batman Returns too? Because Alfred's talking about security or something. Yeah. And then Bruce makes a comment. He's like, hey, you're the one, when I turned around, Vicky Vale was standing right there. I'm here doing my work. And then I turned around, oh, hey, Vicky. And they totally address like Alfred being like a terrible wingman, you know what I mean? Like,
essentially.
But then you're right, because then Dick breaks into it in Batman Forever, and then Barbara
a terrible scene.
Yeah, he falls down
where he's just like doing tumbling. Like gymnastics, tumbling and riding. Oh, we needed to get a sweet parkour scene in this movie. Here we go.
Playing with the towel all wet.
Oh, and dude, that scene is so bad, and they put this rock and roll over down,
and he falls, and you just hear the platters come down with him,
and then he grabs that mop. It's like, this is so stupid. This is the worst.
Better than Barbara's, where she just kind of stumbles into it, and then Alfred's like, "Hello, niece. I knew you'd find this." So we could. Well,
we're gonna. That could be its own podcast. We need to hold up before we talk about Batman movies.
No, you're right. Like,
that'd be a great podcast. Though we rank the Batman films, all of them.
Yeah, we should. Well, I want to do commentary on each one,
dude.
Yeah.
Okay. You heard it here first, everyone. It's coming. We're gonna do commentary tracks.
Winter break's coming. So.
Winter break is coming. So,
yeah, continue. I don't have notes on it. I'm kind of just winging it.
Well, you know what? My notes are running short too, like 5 through 8. I didn't necessarily take notes. I'm gonna have to like kind of look at the cover of the book and try to remember.
Well, he does then bounce into like origin stories per issue, just like Watchmen does.
Yes, he does, which I really like.
I really do like the Mime and Marriott's
that one's great.
Origin. I think it's awesome how there are 2 kids. Mm-hmm. Their parents they own businesses and they're getting bullied by the police officers, and the girl's dad just hangs himself because he's like, I can't let my daughter or granddaughter live.
He knows he's not going to have the protection money, and then eventually it's going to hurt her.
Yeah.
And then these guys basically team up and they look out for each other.
And then they have a kid, and apparently she's pregnant again.
Yeah, which is the newest thing going on. That's going to be interesting.
I hope is it like a chosen one type of child type of thing?
They kind of write it out to be that way. Like, Manhattan's like, I've seen your child, and that's why I didn't kill you. Like when I ran into you.
I'm curious, like, who her child is then.
It's going to be interesting. I don't know. It's going to have to be someone powerful, but we'll have to see what they decide to go with it.
And that might answer if that guy has powers or not.
That's true too.
You know what I mean? Because if he's that powerful and he does have powers, like, I don't know, that might be cool.
It definitely could be. We're gonna have to see what happens with that. They're interesting characters though, and I'm not like groaning. I'm like, oh, these are cool, and I want to see what's next with them. So that's exciting. Because adding characters into Watchmen, that's dangerous territory.
Yeah, it's a risky move.
I think they pull it off though, because at this point too, Silk Spectre and Night Owl are just missing.
I was going to mention that next. Yeah. I'm curious if they're going to bring them into it.
They have to.
Because,
right? I mean, Mothman shows up, and Mothman is
like a very important character in this story.
He's in this asylum with Reggie, essentially. And he's the one who gives Reggie the mask, and he gives him the Night Owl journal.
Reggie goes crazy because he witnessed the telekinetic bomb. That's right. I totally forgot about that.
Which also I have some serious problems with, because in when they show Reggie was at ground zero essentially when the giant monster showed up in New York, and he's in his car and the monster shows up right in front of him, and then all of a sudden he lives
out of everything,
and he's like feet away from it. But when you read it in Watchmen,
everything's destroyed,
gone, and all these bodies all over the place.
Only like the leftover, if you're within a mile radius or a certain mile radius, you'd get hit with that telekinetic bomb.
Reggie's literally like 10 feet away from the monster, and just sitting in a car, and he's fine.
Yeah.
So that was something to me that was like, I get what you're trying to do visually, but it doesn't make sense with what we know about how destructive that event was.
Yeah, exactly.
So that took me out of the experience a little bit.
Like we said, our favorite part in that book is when you turn the page and there's just so much death.
Yeah.
Everyone died within like 20 miles,
and that's the beginning of issue 12, right?
Yeah.
It's like the last issue, you open up that page and it's just like dead bodies and blood. And
just
it's
hanging from buildings and everything.
It's like, whoa, this is metal. So that part kind of threw me off, but you do get to see, this is issue 4, you get to see the background with Mothman. After that, he goes to the asylum. Mothman thinks he can fly still, and does fly.
Because he believes he can fly.
So it's confusing.
And you know what's kind of cool?
Yeah.
Is that in the before Watchmen, Darwin Cook's Minutemen, it talks about how he needed a drink to like have that belief to do it. And then here, he doesn't need anything. He's finally conquered that fear, and he just takes off every night. Yeah.
And I'm wondering if they read before Watchmen and purposefully did that. I would hope they did.
Yeah, because I'm hoping so. That's cool. It's a cool connection to be like, hey, we're trying to kind of redeem ourselves.
And that's technically like the first time DC took a swing, really, at Watchmen was before Watchmen, which was a disaster. So that I thought that was pretty interesting. I
really do like Mothman in the issues that we do see.
He's very interesting, and it's cool to see him back, and it makes sense for him to be there. It doesn't feel forced. That issue 4 ends with new Rorschach kind of taking the same journey as old Rorschach. He like takes the ship and finds Adrian, and this is when he starts working with him. But what I thought was interesting is the name of the ship was Percy Bysshe.
Oh yeah,
which is the name
author
of the poem.
Ozymandias.
Yeah. So I thought that was kind of like a cool little nod.
It was a cool little Easter egg. Yeah.
And then that's the end of 4, and then we go into 5. And to be honest, from 5 on out, I don't have exact notes, but basically we kind of follow Marionette and Mime for a while, and they end up going into this bar and thinking that like they're going to hang out there, but then Joker's henchmen are there, and they get upset because they're dressed up in paint, and then they kill them.
They kill them all, yeah.
They kill a bunch of them.
And then the Joker pops up.
Yeah.
And I think that's cool where you see all the villains, and that's how you see the comedian ambush all the DC villains and shoot out the Riddler's kneecap.
Well, there's one part right before that too. Batman is essentially going straight into that crowd of people who were trying to like, you know, riot against him, and he gets beaten up by all these people.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And he's like beaten and bloodied on the floor, and Joker finds him and like chains him up. And then Marionette and Mime show up, and he's like, you know what, you two are just like crazy enough to hang out with me, like follow me. And then we go, like Joker's all giddy because he's wheeling around Batman all in chains.
And you see Mr. Freeze's men.
Yeah, and then you go to this big underground sewer meeting with like all of like just all the DC baddies.
Villains, all of them, yeah. I wish I had the issue open because it's literally one of the coolest scenes, like how they're all there, and it's cool seeing all the assortment of villains. It's like almost a Legion of Doom meeting or something, you know?
Yeah, it's really cool. And then they're like all just talking and planning and everything, and then suddenly comedian shows up and just starts shooting people, man. He's just in the wings sniping people.
Yeah, which I love. I thought that was great. Although I feel like the comedian kind of gets beat up too easily.
Oh, I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. But you know what? He's surrounded by so many supervillains. It's kind of like, you know, they would have outnumbered him.
Yeah.
But he kills a lot of them.
He does. He shoots a couple in the head.
Yeah.
The one guy that,
I can't
Blue Tornado or something like that.
Yeah.
Something.
He's like yelling at people, and then suddenly,
and bam. And you're just like, what? And then you see him step out, and it's a great entrance. Because even as a reader, you're like, I did not expect that to happen. Like, something else happens right around there too.
Well, I love, before we move on though, I love the gore and the use of blood in this book.
Oh yeah.
It's so gritty and violent, and it feels like Watchmen. And I think that's really cool.
And that's what I mean. They combine that reality of Watchmen with the comic booky sense too, and Gary Frank is just so freaking good at that.
Yeah.
And it's right there at the edge of reality and cartoon, and it sits there and it kind of settles uneasily with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, no, I definitely agree with that. The artwork is phenomenal.
And I think that's the same issue as the one we were kind of talking about with Marionette and Mime's backstory, where we get to see what happened with them.
I think it's the one after.
It might be the one right after, but we get their motivation, and we see that they're together.
See how much they like. Oh, because the comedian comes in and finds them after that. Yeah,
yeah. The comedian finds them, and then we kind of like we really like reel in the characters, because then Veidt shows up with his, what is it, Bababsis?
Yeah.
His little kitty.
And I thought that was cool seeing Bababsis in the very beginning.
Yeah.
Because for one, I hated when that cat died. And that was like the one thing where Alan Moore killed. I was just like, oof, that was messed up, man. He killed his own cat.
He's so cute as a little kid.
But did you read the back notes where it shows how he was testing to create another one?
No, I guess I didn't. What does that part say?
So when he was creating this new Bababsis, whatever its name is, he basically did the same test that they did to create Dr. Manhattan. And so then you just see, he was saying that the experiment seemed like a failure. And then a week later, there was reports of a cat skeleton walking around, and then a baby cat organs just floating.
Wow.
And then finally, like, it was like the skin, and then finally it was fully like there.
That's
and
cool.
then it was just super adorable, and it kind of, but he did it so that it could pick up the same scent as Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah.
And that's why it's like the the guider to find Dr. Manhattan.
And they use its power combined with Green Lantern's lantern.
And which brings another interesting fact about DC. The reason why Saturn Girl, for one, is super important and comes out of Arkham Asylum because she was also in that Rebirth issue.
Yeah.
And she's saying that I'm from the 30th century, and they're like, this girl's insane. They're in Arkham. And then the one guy in the Thunder dude.
And I was wondering who that old guy was. I was hoping you would be able to tell me.
So
the guy who's looking for the lantern, right?
Him and the Green Lantern, Alan Scott, that they talk about, they're from the JSA. The JSA and Saturn Girl is from the Legion of Superheroes. Superheroes from the 30th century.
Okay.
They've both been missing since the New 52.
Oh, so this is them kind of like writing them
Bringing them back in.
Cool.
Yeah. So
cool.
like, and Jeff Johns did a phenomenal JSA. If you're going to read JSA, read Jeff Johns' run on JSA.
Okay.
And those are the Golden Age characters, which is kind of referencing to, I mean, Dr. Manhattan came from an era that was the Golden Age kind of basis of characters, and now they're missing. So I'm wondering if he took them out and because he saw it didn't work in his timeline and left the current ones in. It's just like weird comparisons like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the JSA and Legion of Superheroes are both missing, and I think this is them finally coming back because in the Budden storyline, Jay Garrick is lost in the Speed Force. And he's trying to get the Flash to remember who he is so that he can finally stick and like stay in that universe, but he doesn't. So that's where those guys come from. I know the one dude is like the Thunderer, and it's like this pink lightning bolt, and he's a genie or something. I forget his name. But Alan Scott Green Lantern, in this timeline of DC, it says in the beginning of that issue that he died on a train. And I believe his origins was that he was on that train and he survived because he found the lantern, and the lantern gave him ability to shield himself.
Okay.
So the fact that lantern's just been hanging around, and what's his face, the genie guy, is trying to get to it to be with his friends again. So it's kind of bringing stuff that's missing in the DC universe back into continuity. Yeah.
That's really cool. That's a really cool connection. Yeah.
Yeah. And then blaming, I don't know. It's kind of weird because if Dr. Manhattan got rid of the JSA because it reminded him too much of his timeline, I wonder that's why it's so bleak.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because the JSA was very bright and bubbly and, campy and whatnot. Okay. So missing that element and that back history is what made it the DC universe darker in a sense. Yeah.
That's cool. I mean, it seems like it all makes sense. Like,
it pieces together.
I'm
you
not
just have
totally
to know
in with all of what's happening in the larger scale.
It's weird because it's
cool.
so much information. You have to know like the DC history, and not only the DC history, but the DC publication history. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
well, and that's comic books too. That's why sometimes it's a hard thing to jump in on. When some of these characters, like Superman celebrating its 80th anniversary. Yeah. Like, I'm sure you don't have to read all 80 years of Superman to understand what's going on, but you're missing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why we have this podcast.
Yeah.
So we can tell you about this
so
as much as we can. Yeah.
So we can read things like before Watchmen so you don't have to.
To save you time. But yeah, so that's why Saturn Girl and I forget his name. I feel so bad. The old guy is so important.
I don't know.
And it's weird how Alan Scott's already dead.
Okay, yeah.
Like I find that kind of bizarre. But I guess they're trying to put back together the JSA. And I don't know how that's going to affect the DC universe at this point, other than like, hey, we have a bunch of old superheroes kicking it back here. But the Legion of Superheroes sounds cool because Superman used to travel in time with them and live in the 30th century for a little bit and do 30th century stuff, I guess. I don't know.
Cool.
Yeah. But we don't know.
We don't know yet. Yeah. Hopefully we'll see how it ends up. I think that's everything up until issue 8, I'm pretty sure. Is there something else we're missing? I know Batman confronts Vite, and then they all, because Batman gets freed in that whole altercation.
Oh, Dr. Manhattan does show up.
He does. So
Vite tries to convince him.
He uses the Green Lantern and Babastis and somehow the power together.
Pull towards...
And he says that it hurts Dr. Manhattan. Like it's forcing him to show up.
Yeah.
So then John shows up and the comedian's there. Marionette and Mime are there, the Joker's there, and Batman's there. It's like the weirdest group of people.
And you're just like, it's a cool little scene right there.
Yeah. And basically Vite asks him, hey, we need you to come back. And John's like, nah, man. Like, I'm not coming back. I'm done. And I'm doing something else here.
Yeah.
And by the way, you two, like, I was going to kill Mime and Marionette, years ago, but I saw what your child was destined to do and what your new child's going to do. And they were like, they were like, what? A new child? And then they're pregnant
Maybe
again.
one of them... Well, I mean, that doesn't make sense either. I would say, what if one of them is part of, like, the Legionnaire?
I don't know. I have no idea. We'll have to see what's going on. So then issue 8, which just came out, puts us in a whole nother thing. And finally, Superman, like,
I feel like this was the biggest break, like a total change in the series so far. Because now we're really just focused on DC characters this whole issue.
Yeah, there's almost no Watchmen characters, huh?
Oh, yeah.
No, yeah, I don't think so. So basically, the conflict in Russia is reaching an all-time high. And what's the name of this flame superhero again?
Oh, Firestorm?
Firestorm. Yeah. He accidentally turns a bunch of people into glass.
Do you know about Firestorm?
No, I don't.
Okay.
And see, and that's my only complaint about Doomsday Clock. If you're just a Watchmen fan and you're not like into DC Universe, there's going to be all these names and you're going to be like, who are these people?
And you're like, why is Black Adam and Kadak important and everything? And that's a big flaw. Because Superman you could get a grip on. Batman you can understand easily. The Joker, Lex Luthor, I think that's all very... basic knowledge, and even if you know nothing.
It's so related to pop culture, it'd be impossible not to understand the characters.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree.
Well, honestly, you're so right with some of these, and I know he's trying to go deep down and get like DC knowledge to be like, hey, look at these obscure characters that I'm like bringing out that nobody like has ever used in years. But at the same time, you can't just pick it up. Yeah, because dude, Firestorm. It's funny. There's a Robot Chicken skit where they do the DC specials. Yeah. And there's like, can't believe that this character exists type of thing. Yeah. And they're like, Firestorm. And he's one of them. Yeah. We got to pull that clip up maybe. But Firestorm, basically, there was a nuclear type of accident and a kid and a professor got fused together. And in some, like in Brave and the Bold, it's a kid and a football player. And in some stories, it's him and a professor. But
okay, that makes way more sense now. Because he's just talking to the professor. He's like, I can't hear the professor anymore. I'm like, what is he talking about?
And so he's fused with him. So it's one body, but like the professor's mind is like over here. Okay. Also, this is a character that's in Legends of Tomorrow, which is a DC show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I guess people who don't know about this character but have seen the show, they will recognize that.
Well, that's cool.
And he could basically... he's similar to Metamorpho. He could basically create elements as long as he knows the
chemical composition or whatever.
Power, and how they blend together to create whatever.
As long as he can balance his equations.
Yeah, and that's why it's cool because he has the professor, because the professor's like combine iron and air and you'll get this.
That's how he ends up turning all these people into glass.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's weird because he's just like, I don't know how I turned him into him. Like, and how do I turn him back? But while that's going on, I'm like, hey, why don't you know? Like, how far into Firestorm are you in your career that you don't know how to, like, reverse or control this? You know what I mean?
That's interesting. Yeah, I can see what you're saying.
Like, I feel like that's an amateur Firestorm move. But if we're this deep in DC history and in the future of DC, I don't know. Maybe they redid this character for Rebirth, and I'm just unaware because I could care less about Firestorm. But that's the only way I could, I don't know.
Well, he turns these people into glass in Russia.
Yeah.
And then the Russians...
crowd of people, because he gets overwhelmed.
They're swarming him, and he basically pulls a Dr. Manhattan where he's like, leave me alone. Yeah. But instead of warping them, he turns them all into glass.
And then he runs off because he's freaking out.
He doesn't know how to do it.
Russia's after him, basically.
Because they think it's an act of terrorism by these United States superheroes.
Because the Superman theory. And then Superman does the most Superman thing ever. He goes and hunts him down. Yeah, he's like, he could have gone Kadak because Kadak is saying that you could be refugees here and I'll keep you safe. Or then they're like, Black Adam's like, he's not here. I've already looked. Tried looking in Russia. And he finds him in Russia. And Superman's like, dude, calm down. Let me help you. Like, let's figure this out. And he does it and he saves a child. And I was just like, okay, cool. But I don't know. I guess I have to reread it because we did read it out of order, like that book.
Yeah, the one we were reading was a little hard to get a grasp on.
So, that's real loud.
That's weird. That was really loud. We got a little bit of Kato's laugh in this recording. Hopefully it came out. If not, this would be an awkward pause.
Just confusion.
Well, so he turns the group into glass. He leaves. This boy is supposed to be someone, I guess, because Superman knows who the kid is.
Does he?
He like hugs him and says his name. And then again, I was just writing this off as like, I have not kept up with DC Comics. I don't know what's going on.
Well, okay. For the record, we both read the leaked version of Doomsday Clock.
Yeah, we read the leaked one, and all the pages were out of order.
Yeah.
And at first you read it and you're like, what's happening? Like they're getting really...
The first like 3 are in order, and then it's like page 24, and then 12, like page 5 is at the bottom.
So I'm scrolling through here.
And then you can't find it in your research. Yeah, so it's kind of confusing.
It's a little confusing, but he saves the kid. Superman goes back with Firestorm. Vladimir Putin's having a big thing, and all these people are there, and he's having this big press conference, and like, the people are blah, 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 and Superman shows up, and then Vladimir Putin very reasonably is like, you know what, let's listen to what Superman has to say. And then he's like, look, Firestorm he made a mistake.
He had a boo-boo.
He did it on accident, everybody. He didn't mean it, but we can fix this. Yeah. And then when they say that, they like don't believe him.
Yeah.
So they start shooting, but then when they're shooting, they're like hitting all these people who are made out of glass.
Which doesn't make sense to me.
They're like killing them. Well, you'd think they wouldn't do that, but all these people already think they're dead. So
well, even then, I feel like no matter what, they wouldn't like cause a battle.
Yeah.
Where they keep it as like a monument and like respect of, I don't know.
I guess it's true.
You know,
because then tanks roll in and start crushing him, and then Superman's got to throw the tank off so it doesn't hurt anyone. And then these Russian superheroes show up, and then it turns into a big fight.
Yeah.
And then Batman shows up too.
Batman, and at first you're kind of just like, okay, where is this issue going?
Yeah.
Because then Batman pops up out of nowhere. He's like, Clark, shut up, stop talking. You need to stop talking right now. And then the fight starts, and then you're kind of reading the issue, and you're like, what's the point of all this?
Yeah.
Well, how does this connect to Doomsday Clock? Why are we worried about Firestorm turning Russians into this and stopping him? And why are we just focused on this when all these other issues covered way more story than this one so far?
And all these characters that we're now not seeing.
Yeah. Until the last 2 pages.
Yeah, until the last 2 pages.
And then the fight's going on, and these people are getting crushed because they're glass, and then Firestorm's about to freak out again.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, oh, you're right. Oh, I'll say it right now. It is a very Dr. Manhattan thing, like what he did. And then so Batman's just like, it's not Firestorm.
Yeah.
And you're like, what?
What?
And then the next page is a giant blue explosion. You're just like, was that Dr. Manhattan?
Yeah. And then was it at the end of this issue, or might have been the previous one, where Dr. Manhattan talks about how he can't see the future anymore? Like he says that like a month from now.
Oh, the previous issue.
Previous one.
I'll be fighting Superman.
I'll be fighting Superman, and then that's the end.
Oh.
And what I'm thinking is happening, and here's my take on Doomsday Clock so far. It might be like way off base, but it seems like it's almost a criticism of modern day politics in that we have all this fake news, all this false information that's getting people riled up to believe a story that's not even true, and we don't understand people's motivations. And it seems like Dr. Manhattan did this on purpose to cause this scene to frame Superman in a similar way that they did the giant monsters in the end of Watchmen. Oh. And he's trying to make some kind of like monumental example going on. Now, I'm not entirely sure exactly what it means yet, but that's what I felt at the end, because he kills those people. Like all those people who were glass, they're all gone now. Yeah. And presumably some other people who were just alive.
Presumably. Well, maybe Vladimir died too.
Who knows? You can't kill Putin, man.
Nah.
He wouldn't sign off on it. Mutually assured destruction.
Yeah, I'm sure he's reading the series and being like, all right, I guess I approve. But no, and then you find out it's potentially Dr. Manhattan. Maybe.
Just because of the blue explosion.
Yeah, just because of the color scheme that's used. And they used it previously in issues like Rebirth, issues like The Button.
Oh, cool.
Because remember when Reverse Flash comes back, he's blue.
That's right.
He's still glowing. So a bunch of hints that it's Dr. Manhattan just by the color scheme. But that's how it leaves us. That's the cliffhanger.
And to be honest, I'm excited to read it.
Yeah.
And I read Doomsday Clock after I finished Before Watchmen, and it was a joy, man.
Yeah,
because every issue I wanted to see what happened next. I was like, what's going on next?
And that's where I'm having a debate kind of with myself. I'm like, is this a bore or is it a really good build up to something crazy? You know what I mean? Because it needs to have a strong payoff. If it doesn't have, if these last 4 issues aren't just bam, 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 then I feel like it's going to fail as a series.
It depends. To me, it's exactly like Game of Thrones. Like, are we going to be able to pull this thing off and give a satisfying ending that because now the stakes are being raised.
Yeah, so high.
And it's like, okay, what's going to happen?
And so much time. Because think about it. Issue 1 came out last November.
Wow.
And now we're literally a year later, because it's just the next year in December now. And we're only on issue 8.
So it could be...
Issue 9 doesn't come out till I think next month. I think now they're doing a monthly basis almost.
So hopefully we'll have it done in a few months, which means once we're done with it, we need to come back.
Yeah.
And do an addendum to our Watchmen series and just put the stamp on Doomsday Clock, approve or not approve.
Because, like Dr. Manhattan says, nothing actually ends.
Nothing actually ends.
No.
Yeah.
Just like this damn 3-part Watchmen series.
There is no end, Adrian. Yeah.
I mean, overall, I'm very mixed feelings about Doomsday Clock.
Okay.
I'm not crazy about this Rorschach character. He hasn't quite sold me yet.
Okay.
I do love Mime and Mariette. I'm interested how they're integrating it into the DC universe. If they do it right, I'm going to love it. But if they do it wrong, I'm going to be a fanboy.
Yeah.
Nobody likes a fanboy.
No one likes a fanboy, Brandon.
Likes a fanboy. But I don't know. It's definitely kept me on my toes. And it's definitely kept me being like, I have to read it as soon as it comes out. Because you're waiting a month and a half. And I don't know. I'm glad we're doing this too, because reading it bi-monthly has been really hard. Because reading these books and then you read one issue and you wait a month, 2 months later to read the next one, it's so broken up. You're like, I don't even remember what happened.
Yeah.
You know, and it's so much information. But reading it all now and potentially going to reread it one more time or at least skim through it.
I think we have to just, refresh the brain and hit it one more. And I'm sure just like Watchmen, hopefully when the story's finished, reading it the second time, you're going to be able to piece together some little hints and clues.
I definitely did reading it a second time now, because the first time reading it, I was just completely lost pretty much, because that break and those jumps by like even a monthly series was hard to keep up with.
And just like Watchmen, they do a lot of jumping in the storytelling.
Oh, yeah.
Where you're telling one story, then you're off somewhere else, then you're back, then you're in a flashback. And
you have to remember these key characters and what they just did, because we're going to pick up right after that. So interesting. Jeff Johns is kind of just dangling it there for us, but
like a marionette.
Yeah, good one. But like Mime, it's still invisible.
Oh, hey, locking it down, Brandon, locking it down.
Man, so we'll see. We'll see. I'm definitely interested.
I am too. Right now, I'm going to give it 1 thumbs up. I don't know if the second thumb's coming, everyone. We'll find out soon.
8 issues in?
I'd say it's worth a read. It's definitely on my pull list, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep reading it.
I'm definitely watching for issue 9. Yeah. That's supposed to be a big battle.
And I'm going to go so far as to say, if you're like super into Watchmen, you need to be reading Doomsday Clock. Because so far, it's doing justice to the characters. I can agree with what you're saying about Rorschach. I'm not entirely sold yet, and I need to figure out what's going on. But like Ozymandias' story arc seems like Ozymandias.
Yeah. And Dr. Manhattan.
And to see Joker and Comedian like
right there
in the same scene.
Because we were comparing them before. Yeah.
And they're like there's such a duality there about just finding the humor in all of this like darkness and everything.
Yeah, the big joke behind everything.
Yeah. So that was really cool to see those characters clash.
It is cool seeing Rorschach with Batman.
Yeah.
I thought that
was
awesome.
And then Batman like beating up Mime and Marionette. There's some good Batman fight scenes too that definitely. Are like, yes.
Overall, pretty great.
Pretty cool stuff. Well, man, I think we should close this thing up. We've been talking on this way longer than I thought. It feels like it.
Yeah, it does feel. I have to pee so bad right now.
Oh my gosh. We've been going for like 2 hours. Is that right?
I don't know. This might be a 2-parter episode.
We might have to cut this up. Okay. Well, you know what? I was going to check the cameras, but we might as well just finish pull list. I mean, so do you want to go first? Or you want me to go first on your pull list?
You go first.
Okay. So my pull list, and man, I'm such a cheater, dude. Because
what were you reading previously? I don't remember. What did we say?
Before this, I've been rereading Outcast. And what happened was I fell behind. I felt like 10 issues behind on Outcast because I just stopped reading it for a while. And then I'm sure like every comic book reader's experienced this, you forget what's going on. And then I was like, you know what? Let's just go back to the beginning. Let's read this thing again. I have been reading the reprints of Tank Girl that came out.
Dude, I've been wanting to read. I have a Tank Girl book. I've been wanting to read Tank Girl so bad.
They've reissued Tank Girl, and
is it good?
It's cool, man. I mean, it's just the original, and I have some backup issues I can like.
Jamie Hewitt's awesome.
Yeah. And they print a bunch of multiple covers, so I have some I can loan you if you want.
Oh, that'd be great. I'd be so excited.
It's so cool, dude. And I wasn't familiar with that story at all. And then like Michelle showed me the movie, which is ridiculous. It's like the most ridiculous movie.
Even as a kid, dude. I was interested in it. Yeah.
Talk about commentary track.
Yeah. Okay.
It's hilarious. But we should do like some obscure comic book movies too.
I'm down.
But League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. We'll play a drinking game while we watch it.
Oh yeah.
But there's some really good stuff in Tank Girl, which has been cool to experience. It's got so much style. I wanted to also just toss out a music recommendation. I've been listening to Maggie Rogers lately. She's this new like pop singer.
Oh.
She's got really good pop music, and it's just refreshing because I feel like some pop music's just bad.
Oh yeah.
And you have all this like, digital effects, and she sings so clean. Like it's her voice singing. She's writing the songs. So it's cool. It's got kind of like a Fleetwood Mac kind of vibe to it, like a Stevie Nicks kind of thing going on. So if you're into that kind of thing, I highly suggest Maggie Rogers. She's got some good singles out right now. And there was one other thing I wanted to mention.
You know what? I think I just looked into her.
Really?
I swear.
She was on SNL a couple weeks ago, and I saw SNL because Michelle's obsessed with SNL, and we watched that thing, and then I was like entranced by her performance.
Yeah, her outfit was really crazy.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just like...
No, I saw her Instagram. I heard a song, and I was like, I feel like oddly attracted to this.
There's something about her persona that like really...
And no, you're right, because her voice super clean.
Yeah. And the song on SNL is Light On or Leave the Light On. I can't remember. Something about lights. Yeah. But if you look up the SNL performance in particular, check this out. Tell me what you think. I'd love to get your idea behind it, but it was really cool.
Nice.
And then I saw a movie. Oh, well, we saw Overlord recently, and there's a review of it out on our channel right now from Frank and Danny and I. The two of them were like a little more on the fence about it. I personally loved it. I thought it was like a really good, and even since the review, I've like slept on it. Sometimes on movies, I got to think about it for like 3 or 4 days and like digest it and like think about it in my brain. Yeah. And it's a really cool like horror movie experimentation. The story's really tight. The characters, they feel familiar. They feel like, and they all learn something from each other. They're not just anonymous faces. Each character has a purpose in the story. Nice. And it's cool, man. I mean,
I've heard cool stuff about it.
I think it's definitely worth watching, and check out our review. Check out our review on the channel if you're interested.
Video, or is it? Is it a video review?
Yeah, it's a video review.
Nice, cool.
And came out when this comes out. It came out like a week or two ago. So just check it out on the channel if you want to know some more. But I'd recommend watching it. It's got it has Kurt Russell's son in it, Wyatt Russell, and he's playing a Kurt Russell role. And if nothing else, it's just good for that.
That's great.
To see like young Kurt Russell. Yeah. And it's got vibes of The Thing, and that's what I love about it. It's got all this body horror and like mystery to it. So
I might be really down for that.
I really recommend it. I think it's a great movie. Other people on the channel, they thought it was a little too, and I don't want to speak for them. You can listen to the review, but there was too much like recycled things and picked things from elsewhere. You can definitely feel the influences in the movie, but sometimes I think it's solid. Sometimes it's cool if you pay honor to it in the right way. Kind of like what we're talking about with Doomsday Clock. If you honor the characters and interpret it in new ways and add something new to it, then it's worth checking out.
If it's done right, it's great.
That's my recommendation. What about you, man?
I just saw that Beowulf movie recently.
This 12-year-old Beowulf movie.
Yeah, I finally watched it, and it was awesome.
Okay,
it was so good. So if you haven't seen that animated Angelina Jolie Beowulf movie, totally watch it.
I'll check it out,
dude. It's super cool.
To.
I had a blast. I had a blast.
I always thought the look of it looked really nice, and I just never got around to seeing it.
It was on Amazon Prime, and we were just up when we were just like, I don't really want to pay attention to something. Let's see if this is even good. I just tossed it on randomly, and we were just hooked.
That's the best surprise, man.
Yeah, and
that's
you're just like, surprise. Damn, I need to finish this. So I got super into Norse mythology in the last week. So
you just dive down the rabbit hole.
I just got super excited, and I'm listening to Amon Amarth right now, which is Viking metal. I'm reading Neil Gaiman's Norse. Why can't I say Norse right now? Norse mythology book, and it is awesome. Okay. If you don't know nothing about Norse mythology, just read the first 10 pages of this book, and I promise you're gonna be hooked.
Wow.
It is way cooler and way more epic than I ever thought, than I ever imagined. So reading 10 pages of this book, I was like, I gotta read some Thor. I gotta read a book with it, and I gotta read some good Thor.
You just jumping all over the place.
Yeah, just
next week you're gonna be like, I just played the new God of War, everyone.
Straight up,
so into it.
The new one does have
the new one's Norse mythology.
I'm gonna buy that when I get home. I'm just
everyone.
Gonna jump on this. But so Neil Gaiman, and I have an audiobook where Neil Gaiman reads it. Wow. Neil Gaiman created Sandman.
Okay.
Sandman's my personal favorite comic book series ever. I have a Sandman tattoo, and that's the only superhero tattoo I have, or comic book tattoo I have.
That's saying something.
Definitely just top grade. Neil Gaiman's one of my favorite guys. I met him at San Diego this last year, and right now, I could pee myself. That's
oh, man.
Yeah, he's such a great guy, and he spoke the sentence he said to me, I went home and I just started writing comics, and I just like drilled, like I just wrote like
That's
9
cool.
issues in like a week.
That's awesome.
Such great inspiration, and he writes so well, and hearing him like speak the book, like with the audiobook, and I'll listen to it on my break when I can't read or something, or if I'm out and I can't read the book. So I'll listen to it and then I'll read it just so it could stick better. But hearing him read it is just so peaceful and so beautiful because his voice is so awesome, and it's Neil Gaiman. I just love it.
And there's something about like hearing it from the mouth of the author. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
They get the interpretations. They get the inflection. That's really cool. That's exciting.
And I mean, dude, Norse mythology is insane. Dude, it is so cool. The origins of how Earth came about and all this. I don't want to spoil it for you guys. Shouldn't even be a spoiler. But read up on it. Just read up on it.
Like thousands of year old spoiler.
Yeah, seriously. Dude, even if you go to YouTube and look in Norse mythology, there's like a 15-minute video that covers everything. And even watching that, you're just like, oh, this is awesome. I got to know more. You know what I mean? And it's just tales. It's just old tales that he's redoing and kind of bringing back into light and all that. And it's just a lot of fun.
That's cool.
I chose Jason Aaron's recent Thor series because I heard a bunch of cool stuff about it. And I had the first 5 issues. I bought them forever ago.
Oh, there you go.
It's the first story arc. It's about a god killer. And dude, from page 1, I was hooked. It's just a good story. Like if you want to read a good Thor story, it doesn't matter if you're into a mythology kick or not, dude, it's just a solid, cool story. It deals with past Thor before he got Mjolnir. It deals with Avengers Thor and future Thor when he's the last Asgardian.
Whoa.
And he's fighting the same guy, this god killer that has like this army. And he's going, and like the first issue, he finds these people that are these people in space that are worshiping to a god, and they don't have any more gods because all their gods died. So they're praying to Thor to help them. And he's like, "Where's your gods?" And they're like, "They're dead." And we don't know where they are. And so he goes and investigates, and they're all just butchered in this like god city. Whoa. And then he starts fighting this person. Then you go to Avengers Thor, and then like it's all different. It's super cool.
Dude, that's cool.
I'm on issue like 3, but I'm excited. But those are short reads too.
Okay.
So for my bigger, longer read, I'm reading Dune.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's massive, dude.
Yeah, it is.
Wow.
But it's interesting so far. I haven't seen. I'm a big David Lynch fan. I love his films.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen his Dune before.
Okay.
But I want to read more of this book, and then I'm going to watch it. But it's cool. It's cool. I'm glad I'm finally doing it because it's such a legendary sci-fi book that I'm just excited to get inspiration for.
That's awesome, man. Tell me how it is. I've never read it.
Yeah,
so
me either.
That'd be cool.
I've had 2 copies before. One disappeared, but
it's one of those books where you look at it, it's just like intimidating.
I think Danny got me a copy for my birthday one year, and then Durf borrowed that copy, and I never got it back.
That sounds like Durf. I'm just teasing.
Yeah, straight up on it's Durf. So Beowulf will lead you into Norse mythology, which will lead you into Thor. And then on the sidelines, we have and Amon Amarth, if you want some good Viking metal.
Well, man, you got the whole theme. Yeah,
I'm super hyped. I've been drinking beer all week and just reading Thor. You know what I mean?
That's like the manliest comic book thing you could do.
And Dune, so we'll check it out. We'll see how this goes.
Cool.
That's the pull list.
All right, that's the pull list. So next episode, we're doing a Christmas special.
Yes, we're getting out of this bleak, dark Watchmen phase of our end of the world, end of the universe, epic proportions to some Christmas stuff.
Yeah, and then after that, we're going to be looking at Swamp Thing. Yeah. So big things coming up.
Definitely.
Big things.
I know for sure for my Christmas list, I'm going to go over a Batman the Animated Series episode. I'm going to go over Grant Morrison's Happy, which is a TV show and a graphic novel, and the TV show will be on Netflix by the time all this airs.
And I saw the first episode of the TV show.
Yeah, we watched it together. Yeah, and it's crazy. But they are Christmas specials. And again, Grant Morrison's Claus. You should read Claus. It's the origin of Santa Claus.
Oh,
and dude, it is epic. It is again. It ties into this Norse mythology kick. He has like a sword, and he's like worshiping gods. Yeah, it's super cool.
I'll check it out. I'll read that in preparation, and then I have a little book about Munchkin, but I'm not gonna say anything else. So nice. I got a Munchkin book to talk about. Yeah, it was hiding behind the set, so we'll have some cool things to talk about, and then
it'll be a lot brighter.
So join us for something a little more lighthearted in a few weeks.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So signing off. Thanks for this long episode.
I hope you stuck through to the end of it. Or
just skip the before Watchmen stuff.
Yeah, we'll put a timestamp in the comments. Please skip to this area unless you want to hear us hating on something for an hour and a half.
But that's it. Thanks for tuning into Apollo City Comics. Shout out to All Star Comics. Shout out to Farts by Dallas. If you want some cool pins, I got some cool pins thrown in my backpack.
Okay.
I said I'd give them a shout out. So Farts by Dallas. If you guys want to look them up on Instagram, they have some awesome pins.
Cool.
I got some cool Batman ones, and they threw in some free stickers and a magnet. Pretty sweet deal. Check them out. I'm Brandon.
David.
And we'll see you next time.